The reason we are assembled here today is because, unfortunately, we continue to try to open our eyes and have not yet succeeded. Many events were held, and many events on Moshiach are ongoing at this very time. There are publications, there are gatherings, and so much more. But to sit and discuss, as the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach advised, to see how to bring about the Hisgalus has to be an ongoing event as long as we fail to see the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in his full glory. And therefore, a European Congress was arranged. Let us take this time to sit together, united as one, and make resolutions to bring back each one to their respective cities and countries to speed up the process of the revelation. And how we need it now is much more than ever before. I was talking to a friend, a shliach, in Jaffa, Israel, and he told me that a high security officer that this shliach met, when the officer heard that the shliach said something about Moshiach, the officer said, the only way out of this mess is truly Moshiach. The world around us is crying for salvation. Israel is in shambles, and truly today, without question, everyone wants Moshiach. And wasn't this directly what the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach said? That the world is ready, and that all we need to do is to prepare the world to greet Moshiach. We need to come out to the world with this message, that just as the world sees right now that the Rebbe was correct with all the warnings which he gave about giving away territories, that the same Rebbe is right on the mark when he tells us that Moshiach is on his way. We need to come out with the message that just as the people see the miracles that each one have had and continue to have regarding health and various other personal matters, that it is this same Rebbe that wants us to be ready to greet the Rebbe as Melech HaMashiach. This message is slow in coming through. We are not doing all that we need to do, and we are not doing enough. And therefore, we are here to sit and to discuss the Rebbe, the message of the Rebbe, and how to go about bringing this to the world. I don't want to sound as if I'm just standing here to criticize and to direct. I want you all to know that I am as frustrated as all of us, as I want to see the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach just as much as we all do. I therefore would like to suggest something too. We all know that unfortunately there are not enough funds to do what we need to do regarding Moshiach. Sure, we all think to ourselves, if we only had money for ads in the papers, money for Moshiach cards, money for literature, oh, how easy things would be. But the facts are that if the Rebbe wanted that we should have more money, we would. We have what we have, and we have to work with what we have. My suggestion to you all this evening is whenever an article appears in a newspaper about Lubavitch, we should call the writer and ask, why is Moshiach not on it? In fact, we should not wait for the Lubavitch article, as they are few and far between. We should seek out the writers in the first place. We should ask them, why not write an article on Moshiach? I have a friend in New York who is doing just that and is successful in it. He calls the non-Jewish writer and tells him what the Rambam says regarding Moshiach and why the non-Jew has this concept. He then tells them what the Rebbe says, that it will be the newspapers that will spread the word to the world. He then asks the writer if he wants to be part of fulfilling this mission and doing what he needs to do. My friends, almost all the non-Jewish writers agree to write about Moshiach. I'm not talking about Moshiach in a small Jewish weekly, for although they are important, they are nevertheless not as important as the secular newspapers. I'm talking about articles in large city, non-Jewish newspapers. They are willing to write because they are ready. And this way, we solve also the cost problem as we get the article in without payment. I would like to continue this Congress by firstly, it's our privilege and pleasure to invite Rabbi David Ben Yoav, who is the Rav of the Persian Shul in Finchley, in Golders Green, to call him to say the Rebbe's Kapitel, and I would ask you all to stand.
יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח לעולם ועד. אדוני מלך ירגזו עמים, יושב קרובים תנות הארץ. אדוני בציון גדול ורם הוא על כל העמים. יודו שמך גדול מנורא קדוש הוא. ועוז מלך משפט אהב אתה כוננת משרים, משפט וצדקה ביעקב אתה עשית. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להדום רגלם קדוש הוא. משה ואהרון בכהניו ושמואל בקוראי שמו, קוראים אל אדוני והוא יענם. בעמוד ענן ידבר עליהם, שמרו עדותיו וחוק נתן למו. אדוני אלוהינו אתה עניתם, אל נושא היית להם ונוחם על עלילותם. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח לעולם ועד.
I thank you, Rabbi Ben Yoav. When we decided 3-4 weeks ago to make this first European Moshiach Congress, I had the task to speak to various prominent Rabbonim throughout the world to come and attend this conference and to give us chizuk. One of those whom I approached was Professor Herman Branover. Professor Branover is well known throughout the world, both in the Jewish world and the secular world. And he is a foremost exponent on the Rebbe as Melech HaMashiach. Unfortunately tonight, due to circumstances beyond his control, he was unable to alter a very hectic schedule and be with us. However, he was so concerned that he was not able to attend as he would have dearly liked to. He took off his very precious time to have a video crew come into his office and to video a message for us this evening. This message is particularly for this Moshiach Congress in London, and therefore I would ask you to give Professor Branover your full attention.
Dear friends, I am indeed privileged and honored to be able to extend my greetings to the participants of the first European Congress of Moshiach. I'm very thankful to Rabbi Cohen, who took the initiative and leadership and arranged this first Congress. I'm sure that it will be very successful, will contribute a lot to the most important issue of Jewish life of the contemporary time. But I'm of course very upset that I couldn't participate in person because of previous commitments. So at least I can feel that I'm with you by using this video recording. I will tell you what I am going to do. I want to share with you some thoughts, some ideas about the issue of Mashiach, that we live in the Mashiach's era, that we are witnessing the most important period of Jewish history. I may express some criticism to views opposed to my own, but I have to say that this criticism is a loving criticism. I certainly, first of all, criticize myself, my own hesitation, my own thoughts. And then, if I'm expressing some criticism to others, people's view, it means that I am opposed to their views. In no way I am opposed to them as Jews, because that's the main principle of Jewish life, the main, most important mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael. And I hope that during the Congress there will be, of course, arguments and disputes, but everything has to be on the basis of Ahavas Yisrael and Ahavas Yisrael, because at every time and every period of Jewish history we need those qualities, those ideas. But even more so in this terrible time, which is characterized by the absolutely unacceptable, incredible events going on in our own land, in the Holy Land of Israel. And nothing is more needed and more important than Ahavas Yisrael and Ahavas Yisrael. And of course, that's a means to accelerate the revelation of Mashiach. As the Rebbe Melech Mashiach Shlita is stressing many, many times, first of all, we have to be united. First of all, we have to have mutual love to each other and mutual help. What is the most important request which we have from our Rebbe, from the Rebbe Melech Mashiach Shlita? We know that the Rebbe speaks about thousands and tens of thousands of issues. There is no tiniest corner of Jewish life which is not reflected, not elaborated upon in the Rebbe's discourses. But there is no other issue about the Rebbe would speak so much, with such an intensive emotion, with such an outcry, with such a longing, as the Rebbe speaks about the issue of Mashiach. Dozens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times. And of course we should realize what we are obliged to do in the light of this appeal made to us by the Rebbe. The Rebbe's main point is that Mashiach is actually already here. That we have to learn how to open our eyes and understand that Mashiach is here, and all which is still to be done is to proclaim his kingdom, is to announce to every human being in the world that we acknowledge the rule of the King of Melech HaMashiach. Some people believe that Chabad invented the issue of Mashiach. Of course, everybody who is a little bit oriented in Jewish teaching, Jewish history, knows precisely that from the very beginning, when we just became a people, soon after the exodus from Mitzrayim, from Egypt. Nobody else but Moshe Rabbeinu spoke already about the coming of Mashiach in his prophecies. Needless to say that the prophets after Moshe Rabbeinu, especially Yeshayahu, was even called the prophet of the Geula, dedicated enormous time to the issue of Mashiach, to the coming of Mashiach, to the necessity of Mashiach. And then the sages of the Talmud elaborated at length and in the depths about this subject, and needless to say, I'm sure that in the audience there are people who are much better educated in Jewish teachings than I am, because altogether I'm only about Shabbat. I'm a scientist, a researcher, a physicist who became oriented and acquainted with Yiddishkeit, with Torah at quite advanced age. I have to disclose a secret that I put on tefillin the first time in my life when I was 33 years old, 20 years later than it should be for a Jewish male. And that was not in Israel where I live now. That was not in London where you live, or some of you live. That was in the former Soviet Union under the communist regime, facing all the threats. And it happened because of the influence of the Rebbe. Yes, there in the Soviet underground, the communist underground, with all the threats, with all the dangers, the Hasidim who never saw the Rebbe in person, Hasidim who had been born there, who even couldn't at that time communicate with the Rebbe. Very seldom somebody dared to send a letter which went via Israel, via Chabad, and then to America in the same way. Sometimes, very seldom, very short responses have been coming back. For instance, if somebody was asking for a shidduch. And nevertheless, those Hasidim, who even some of them didn't see the Rebbe's picture, because I have been in the entire town where I lived, in Riga, Latvia, and where I worked in the Academy of Science and the Institute of Physics. We had maybe 1 or 2 pictures for the whole town of the Rebbe, and that was our greatest treasure. Nevertheless, the instructions and the teaching of the Rebbe have been implemented with the tiniest details, with an absolute precision, with an absolute dedication. And nobody today, or very few, even now, know that Lubavitcher Hasidim, who survived all the persecutions of communists, have been the only one who maintained schools, Jewish schools, yeshivot, and Talmudei Torah in the underground, when it was punishable literally by death in the time of Stalin. Later on, under other communistic rulers, it was a little easier. It became 25 years of prison, of jail, and it was already a tremendous relief, and the intensity of Jewish educational activities have been promoted even further. In a sense, when I'm recollecting the wonderful years which I spent there, and I'm not mistaken, the years have been wonderful because despite all the threats and despite all the dangers and despite the fact that I got arrested at quite a number of times and put in jail with the most dangerous criminals, nevertheless we felt that we are the army of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that we are accelerating the coming of Mashiach. That's where I first learned about Mashiach. And that was from Hasidim who never saw the Rebbe, never directly listened to the Rebbe, who had hardly few discourses of the Rebbe which penetrated the Soviet Union, handwritten. In a sense, it was similar to our present situation. Unfortunately, as painful as it is, at this moment, and of course we believe it's very temporary and very short, that we cannot see the Rebbe. We cannot see the Rebbe using our physical vision, but we know the Rebbe is with us. He's leading us, he's directing us, and I will come to this subject a little later. The point I wanted to make, that some people believe that Chabad invented the issue of Mashiach. I told you already that the ideas of Mashiach are found in the teaching of Moshe Rabbeinu, of many other prophets, of the sages of the Talmud, and of course in the books of the great Maimonides, the Rambam. The Rambam gave the halachic foundation of the era of Mashiach. In the very end of his book, Yad HaChazokas, his important book of Jewish law, he is dedicated quite a number of pages to the detailed descriptions of halachas related to the era of Mashiach. And he counts the mitzvah of believing in the coming of Mashiach, the mitzvah of expecting and actually longing for Mashiach, as equal to all other mitzvahs, because he is stressing that who is not, the one who is not believing in the coming in the soon coming of Mashiach, and is not actually waiting and longing for the coming of Mashiach, as if he would be negating the entire Torah. The issue of Mashiach got a special boost with the advent of Hasidism. It's known that the Baal Shem Tov, in his teaching of the necessity to see the divine origin of the universe surrounding us, in his teaching about permanent creation, in his teaching about Ashgocha Protis, divine providence, beyond all that, there was a final goal of history of the entire mankind, the revelation of Mashiach. And it's known that in some of the elevation of his soul, the Baal Shem Tov came up in the higher worlds, and he met with Mashiach and asked, when is Mashiach coming? And the answer was, when your Baal Shem Tov's wellsprings will reach outside, then Mashiach will come. And his entire activity, his entire life was dedicated to this purpose. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, stressed this point even stronger and taught how to understand it as much as human mind can understand, and what has to be done to accelerate the coming of Mashiach. And of course, the main book of Chabad Hasidism, the Tanya, is permeated with ideas, with teaching about Mashiach. And from one Rebbe to another, the teaching was becoming even more intense, and the feeling was that every generation is closer and closer to the revelation, to the coming of Mashiach. The previous Rebbe was teaching that all preparations have been done, just a minor thing, using the analogy with the Russian army, that we have to still clean the buttons, polish the buttons of the uniform to be ready for the parade, for meeting Mashiach. Our Rebbe went much further. Our Rebbe is saying and teaching uninterruptedly, tirelessly. He's teaching us that Mashiach is already here. That we have just to open our eyes. The Rebbe is asking us to do more than that. To dedicate our entire lives to the idea, to the issue of Mashiach, to accelerating the revelation of Mashiach. And the Rebbe is saying that if there would be a million of people, of Jews, 10 of them, who would make this, who would really accomplish dedicating their entire lives to the issue of Mashiach, Mashiach would be already here a long time ago. Or even less than 10. So how can we not respond to this outcry, to this burning request with which the Rebbe is coming to us and indicating he is indicating that he did everything he had to do, and for him, Mashiach is already here. Now we have to do ours, what we are able to do, what every one of us is able to accomplish. And then, of course, we will see the result immediately. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not remain without an answer to us. Do we respond properly to the Rebbe's request? And again, I'm speaking about myself. I'm not criticizing anybody. I have no right. But I'm often thinking how much and how frequently I used in my life, and I'm still using those days, the instructions and guidance of the Rebbe. I cannot tell you the whole story, but I will mention some details. When I was refused my desire to leave the Soviet Union, to leave the communist empire and to settle in Israel, when I demanded and requested to give me permission to emigrate, of course I was refused because I was a scientist, because I was then young, because I was the first person who is having this scientific title of professorship, who requested the right to emigrate, and I was refused, and the administration was threatening me and putting me in jail on so-called administrative arrests, to frighten me, to force me to change my mind, to leave the idea of going out of the Soviet Union. I was in full despair because authorities told me they would let me go only after I will forget completely everything I researched in the Institute of Physics. And I did some research which was related to military institutions. And when I asked it how long it should be, the answer was we didn't get precise instructions. It could last 10 or 15 years or more. I believe you understand how unhappy I was that I couldn't make peace with this idea. So in the moment of despair, I did what my friends Hasidim regarded to be an insane attempt. I attempted to get a direct bracha, a direct blessing from the Rebbe through a telephone call. Everybody was telling me that placing a call to America those days, trying to talk to the Rebbe, is certainly only a new pretext for being arrested. But I had nothing to lose. Anyways, they arrested me every few days, every few weeks. So I went to the post office, my home telephone didn't work, the KGB, the secret police, disconnected my telephone line. Despite my worst expectations, I got connection with New York in 10 minutes. The only disappointment was that the secretary of the Rebbe told me that the Rebbe is not speaking on the phone. And at that time I didn't know that it's true. The Rebbe never speaks on the phone. Even when presidents of the United States tried to greet the Rebbe at his birthday, he would not put aside his most vital work, his answering to thousands and thousands of Jews expecting the Rebbe's instruction, the Rebbe's guidance, and speak out of politeness to the President of the United States. He simply refused. He never took the phone. I didn't know that, and I insisted, and I was bargaining with the secretary, and then another secretary, and the chief secretary, up to the moment when finally I heard a second voice in the telephone. And I have to say you, it was a feeling as if a strong electric current went through my entire body. I knew, I don't know how, but I knew that is the voice of the Rebbe. And he told to the secretary, not to me, he told to the secretary in Yiddish, which I understand. He told, Zogtem, as hotchen alle broches und bald wird herausfallen. Tell him, that's me, that he has already all the blessing, and soon he will be permitted to go. Can you guess what happened? in 3 weeks I was out of the Soviet Union, out of the hands of the communists. So look what's happening. The most powerful empire, with their armies, their airplanes and tanks, with their police secret and open, says 10, 15 years. The Rebbe is giving a blessing, and a Jew is released just in 3 weeks. Later on, when I was already in Israel, of course, the first thing I did is I went with my entire family to see the Rebbe in New York. The Rebbe provided me with means to continue my research in the Ben Gurion University, in the University of Beersheba. I started working. Thanks to the Rebbe, I was able to build a laboratory, but not in a rational way. The Rebbe sent me to see somebody whose name even was given to me, a professor in Philadelphia. It's a long story, I already published it several times. And as a result of this consequence of events, of looking up one person and another person and so on and so forth, I have no time to describe all the details. Ultimately, in a story very similar to the famous Baal Shem stories, I suddenly was getting a grant, a very substantial financial grant from the American Navy, which lasted for 7 or 8 subsequent years and permitted me to build one of the most advanced laboratories in magnetohydrodynamics, actually, which happens to be my scientific field in physics, in Beersheba. Later on, I was privileged to listen directly from the Rebbe. The Rebbe called me and he instructed me to call the friends in Moscow, Leningrad, and other cities of the Soviet Union. The Rebbe told me that the communist regime is coming to an end. That was back in 1985. Later on I learned that the Rebbe spoke about the inevitable end of the communist empire, which to us, living under the communist regime, it seemed to be absolutely endless, absolutely infinite in time. But the Rebbe back in 1967, and then to me in 1985, predicted in a prophetic vision. In 1985 he told it will take few years, but the communist regime will collapse and disappear. And he instructed me to tell people in Moscow, Leningrad, and other places. I spent many nights trying to get telephone connection. I did get through to a number of people. They couldn't believe. They would have been happy, they have been excited, but they simply couldn't rationalize how it can happen. I remember at that time I purchased all the New York papers, New York Times, New York Post, Daily News, and others. All of them have been full with very skeptical information about events going in the Soviet Union. Those articles have been written supposedly by the best Sovietologists, by the experts in the field. But who was right? Of course, the Rebbe was right. In my scientific work, I had numerous instances when the Rebbe not only directed me in which, according to which approach to arrange my work, in which direction to go, but he checked my mathematical computations, checked the results of experiments done in the laboratory, and in a fraction of a second he gave solutions. More than that, he indicated about mathematical mistakes. Just having a 1 second or 2 second glance on a vast printed material about our scientific work, he gave me an indication that this number is wrong, this number is not in harmony with other numbers. And sometimes it took my team and myself months, in one case up to 2 years, to find the mistakes. But the Rebbe was always right. And I know that there are millions of people all over the globe who have had and still have the same experiences. So after all that, would it be thinkable that I would have a slightest doubt that the Rebbe, in the main issue, in the issue of Mashiach, about the Rebbe speaks thousands of times, almost every discourse, every sikha is finishing by mentioning the speeding up of the appearance of the righteous Mashiach? Can we have a smallest doubt that the Rebbe is right, that it's exactly as the Rebbe teaches us? Of course not. And the main point is that the moment we accept the idea that, as the Rebbe teaches us, Mashiach is coming very soon, Mashiach is coming next hour, next day, next minute, next second, after we have said that and understand that it cannot be otherwise, because otherwise we wouldn't be Hasidim. We cannot be Hasidim and not take absolutely, literally, and with full confidence the teaching of our Rebbe. That's obvious. That goes by definition. And then, of course, the next conclusion is that Mashiach is nobody else but our Rebbe. Because everyone had at least once a possibility, a chance to see the Rebbe, to listen to him, to get the Rebbe's advice, to see what did fulfillment of this advice did to this person. Every one of all those people knows that if Mashiach has to come during the lifetime of this generation, hopefully very soon, hopefully in the next minute or second, as I told before, it could be nobody but the Lubavitcher Rebbe Melech HaMashiach Shlita. Why? Because he is the only one fits all the criteria defined by Rambam, who is the only one who is not just a greater genius, a greater righteous man, a greater tzaddik than all of us, individually and all together, but there is a tremendous, almost infinite distance between even the very best of us, even those who are dedicating their entire lives to help the Jewish people, and the Rebbe, who has no personal interest, who has absolutely nothing for himself. His life, his deeds, his thoughts are thoughts about the concerns of other Jews and all Jews together and all the mankind together. And we know the Rebbe is with us from everyday life. Look what is going on around the globe in the development of Chabad institutions. Just in the last few years, despite the fact that unfortunately, and to our enormous, incredible pain, we cannot see the Rebbe physically, and we believe it's a very, very short temporary condition. Despite that, the number of Chabad institutions tripled over the last few years. It's now exceeding 4,000 or 4,500 institutions all over the globe, in places which have been simply unknown to the previous generation of Hasidim. In Thailand, in Nepal, New Zealand, and who speaks about the former Soviet Union, the Communist Empire, where to the very end of Siberia, many thousands of kilometers east of Moscow, there are Talmudei Torah, there are yeshivas, there are libraries, there are synagogues, and there are Chabad Hasidim, Shluchim, emissaries, who sacrificed all their comfortable lives somewhere in New York and in Europe, went to those unknown places, having to start everything from the very beginning. But how great is the satisfaction? And those shluchim, those emissaries, starting that day by pronouncing the famous Yechi, Yechi Adonenu Marenu Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'elam Voed, they first of all feel the chayus, the life, stemming from this Yechi, and they are successful, overcoming tremendous difficulties, tremendous hardships, and having success. More than that, do you know, I'm sure you know, how many thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have been already helped and advised through Igros Kodesh. You just write a letter to the Rebbe, you put it on chance in some of the volumes, between some of the pages of Igros Kodesh, and here is the answer. And you read and cannot be astounded more than you are that the circumstances of the person to whom the Rebbe writes a letter are exactly corresponding to your situation, to your problem, and you have the answer. And if you have enough courage and enough confidence, and of course we have. If I put a doubt, I put the doubt on myself, not on anybody else, chas v'sholom. Of course we fulfill all the instructions of the Rebbe, and then we are successful. And there are many, many other proofs that the Rebbe is with us, and we should be very careful using the language when speaking about the Rebbe, using the present tense, present language. It's absolutely wrong to describe some situation saying that the Rebbe used to do that and that. The Rebbe is doing that and that. And you know, the way we are speaking, Hasidus teaches us, Torah teaches us that every word is not only the informative meaning, it also creates a situation. If we believe and feel and are confident that the Rebbe is with us, and we are using present tense, present language, describing the Rebbe as it is in reality, as I tried just a minute ago to convince you, and I'm sure you don't have to be convinced, then we create new reality. Create a situation when we really know and see and feel that the Rebbe is with us, is guiding us, is leading us, and of course it's only an intermediate situation leading directly to the appearance of Mashiach, to the revelation of Mashiach, to the Isgalus of Melech HaMashiach. There are many things I wanted to share with you, and of course time is short and I don't want to keep you in front of the video pictures too long. I will still add some things, but I couldn't tell all I would like to tell you and all I would like to discuss with you if I would be able to attend your very, very important Congress. Let me just refer that some more things are written in this book. I published this book about a year ago together with another scientist, Dr. Arne Gottfried of Toronto. And the title, if you can see it, says Living in the Age of Mashiach. And of course the picture on the cover doesn't leave any doubt who is Mashiach, what is the identity, what is the personality of Mashiach. That's obvious. And if you have time, I don't want really to promote my book, but it has more stories and more arguments and more proofs and more confidence. Maybe it's worthwhile to read it. Now we're coming to a problem that speaking about Mashiach, speaking about the necessity to have full confidence in the revelation, in the Isgalus of Mashiach, we have some problems. We have some problems that we cannot visualize this event. And that's not surprising because, after all, unfortunately, Mashiach at this second didn't come yet. We believe he will come the next second. But at this moment he didn't come, so we never experienced it. And the world after the coming of Mashiach will be changing so much and be so wonderful and full of knowledge of Hashem, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Rambam is finishing his book, that the whole earth will be covered by knowledge, will be full of knowledge of God, the same as the waters are covering the bottom of the sea, actually quoting the prophet Yeshayahu. But our mind is sometimes protesting. Our rational mind, pretending to be omnipotent, to be able to solve any problem, to overcome any hurdle. We are attributing tremendous ability to our mind. The Torah says how dangerous it is to believe that we, with our human abilities, created the entire world. It's also dangerous to rely on our ability to comprehend, to visualize, to rationalize any concept. And surprisingly, some answers can be found even in modern science. You know, some 200 years ago, in the time of Maskilim, the science, the scientific development, the scientific advancement was used as a pretext against faith, against belief, against Torah. Today, everything changed. And again, the first who indicated that was our Rebbe Shlita. And he did it already 50 years ago and more. That sciences are going to become closer and closer to the world outlook of the Torah, to the teaching of the Torah. Yes, some very new, very modern, relatively recent scientific theories, for instance, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, are giving us a possibility to realize that we shouldn't attribute too much possibilities to our mind. We shouldn't rely on our own mind. Even in comprehending nature. It turns out, according to quantum physics, that elementary particles, for instance, electrons, are simultaneously a particle, a grain of matter, and also waves of probability, simultaneously. And our mind is revolting, because we cannot understand, we can't visualize, we can't comprehend this dual nature. Simultaneously, some entity is a grain of matter, and the wave, and not just a wave like we see in the sea, on the water, or a swimming pool, but a wave of probability. So I'm asking you, if we, with all the glorious mind, cannot comprehend, cannot rationalize, even in such a material thing as an electron, can we really visualize and rationalize the coming of Mashiach? The transition of the world into a new stage, of the stage of Geula Shlema? Of course not. But to give up the ambition. Great tzaddikim can do it, not us, regular, simple Jews. Regular, simple scientists as the one who is speaking to you now. And after all, the coming of Mashiach is a miracle. The greatest miracle, the greatest ness. That's how the Rebbe is defining this event. The Rebbe is always saying that there have been many nisim, and the Rebbe is arguing that the wonderful, miraculous victories of the Israeli army, which another story is that unfortunately and sadly nowadays it's especially acute and painful that the politicians wasted all the tremendous victories. But the victories have been miracles, beyond the ability of a mind, of rational mind, to understand, to comprehend. And the collapse of world communism, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, and many, many other instances. One of additional preliminary symptoms of the imminency, of the proximity of coming of Mashiach, is that sciences, those sciences which have been making so many Jews more distant from Torah, nowadays are as if they would be making tshuva, coming back. Not only scientists, not only physicists and mathematicians, human beings are coming back to Torah and making tshuva, but sciences themselves. They're going away from all the claims which have been contradicting Torah, and I have no time, but I could mention that nowadays it's no more disputes and speculation about evolution of animals and plants. It's all already thrown out. It's all didn't work out. There is no mentioning almost in serious literature about those millions and billions of years regarding the age of universe. No more attempts to present human beings as Rahman al descendants of apes. But even more important, now in scientific, in proper, in serious scientific literature, you can find very extended discussions about the existence of the soul. Science is suddenly recognizing the existence of the soul. Greatest physiologists of the brain are acknowledging and recognizing that yes, the brain is working, it's acting as a computer, but there is something beyond, a kind of a program which is not material, which is spiritual, and that's written in books of science, in books published by Princeton University Press or Oxford University Press. And there are calculations made in Los Alamos laboratories. Laboratory was the Americans built in the time of the Second World War, the atomic bomb. Geologists were calculating the age of the universe coming to less than 6,000 years. And modern physics and astrophysics recognizes the fact that according to science, to Einstein's theory of relativity, the Earth can be recognized as the center of the universe, and the Earth is standing still, and sun and stars are revolving around. And many, many other instances. Sciences are coming back to Torah. And that is an additional indication of the soon revelation of Mashiach. So after all that, how can we rely on mind? In everything related to Mashiach, we should be directed by another principle. Of course we have to use our minds. Of course we can be even proud of our minds when we study Torah and have accomplishments and have advancement in our understanding of what great sages have been teaching us, of the Rabbi, our Rabbi is teaching us, what the Torah is teaching us, but not to refer to our own mind, to our understanding, or it's absolutely irrelevant. It should be, our approach regarding our mind should be based on many, many stories which we find in the Torah. For instance, when the Jewish people left Egypt, soon after, they suddenly realized that they are in terrible danger because behind them had been the whole Egyptian army. And in front of them there was a sea, and there was panic. There was all kinds of ideas how to solve the situation, how to rescue Jews. And some spoke about the necessity to fight the Egyptians, and others even wanted to return to Egypt. And God, Hashem, says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'Yisrael. Speak to the Jews, to the son of Israel, and they should move. Should move, but there is a sea. Rational mind is protesting. Rational mind is not accepting such an idea. How can you move into a sea? But the idea is, if Hashem is asking to do something, if Moshe Rabbeinu is a messenger of what Hashem is saying, why should we rely on our mind? That there happened to be a sea, doesn't matter. We have an instruction to go. And Jews are going, and they are successful, they are victorious, and all the Egyptians are thrown in the sea. That's only one example. There are many, many examples of this kind. Avraham Avinu, the first Jew, he was given an instruction to sacrifice his son Yitzchak. Rationally, from the point of view of mind, it sounded insane. Because he was promised, firmly promised by Hashem himself, by Kodesh Baruch Hu, that Yitzchak will give the beginning of a large people, or greatest people, all the sons of Israel, all the sons of grandsons of Avraham Avinu. How can he be sacrificed? And Avraham Avinu had full confidence that he has to fulfill the instruction he got from Hashem, but he had the full confidence that Yitzchak will be the father of many, many, many Jews. And of course he didn't hesitate for a minute. Not everybody can be Avraham Avinu. It's not spoken about this degree. useless even to try, because we know that the forefathers have been special human beings, special Jews, but we should learn. And the same as I mentioned before regarding the crossing of the Red Sea. Not because mine told it's correct, but just because Hashem told, Moshe Rabbeinu told, and we have to learn how to put our mind aside, so to say. Take your own mind, put the mind aside, as long as you are speaking about Mashiach, certainly, because those are such elevated matters that no mind except of great tzaddikim can comprehend it. Some people have hesitation about speaking to different audiences about Mashiach, and especially about the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. They are afraid, they say, they argue inside in a closed circle, it's fine. But how will the people outside perceive it? The Rebbe is teaching us the world is ready for the coming of Mashiach. Many years ago, the Rebbe argued that we should have Sudas Mashiach on the last day of Pesach, and we shouldn't only make those Sudas Mashiach in Chabad synagogues. They should be done in every synagogue, because the Rebbe says then, many years ago, the world changed. Now the world is ready to accept those ideas. And if somebody has hesitation, he probably is not convinced himself strongly enough, and then of course he attributes it to the inability which he supposes of the listeners to accept it. I have to testify that my own experience shows that if I succeed to convince myself, usually the audience is also convinced. I spoke about Mashiach and about the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in front of many audiences on all 5 continents, all kinds of crowds, religious, non-religious, young and old, soldiers and students, even Jews and the Gentiles. If I was convinced and I had full confidence, I never heard any objections from the audience. They accepted it quite easily. They asked intelligent questions. They didn't argue against what I'm saying. They just wanted to know more. And few last things. I mentioned in the beginning of my talk that Baal Shem Tov went up in the higher worlds and got the answer that from Mashiach himself, that Mashiach will reveal himself, Mashiach will come, when the teaching of Baal Shem Tov will reach out. Nowadays, it certainly happened. Not only geographically, regarding distances in space. I mentioned before that Chabad institutions now are everywhere in Far East, in Siberia, incredible places. So that's the geographical distance, and everywhere, in every one of those places, the teaching of Baal Shem Tov reached out. But also ideologically. If science, which is a fortress of rational mind, based completely on rational thinking, now is acknowledging ideas based on the Torah world outlook, that is the greatest chutzah, the point of the answer of Mashiach to Baal Shem Tov was "L'chshe'afutzu ma'inasecha chutza," outside, chutzah. It cannot be greater chutzah, greater outside, ideologically, than science as opposed to the Jewish Torah teaching. And the teaching of Baal Shem Tov reached out there, so even that was accomplished. And so there are no more reasons for Mashiach to not to come the really next minutes or seconds. And more than that, I mentioned briefly the pronouncing of Yechi. according to quantum physics, and excuse me for speaking again as a scientist, as a researcher, as a physicist, according to quantum physics, a material particle of matter, exists as matter only if a human being possessing free will, please pay attention, a human being possessing free will, a Torah concept, now proclaimed by physics, is observing this piece of matter, it exists as matter. If there is no human observer, it is transformed into a wave of probability which we simply cannot visualize. We need this material world to be built out of matter. Then we can use it for our purposes, we can live a comfortable life. But Hashem built the world in such a way that from the point of view of physics, we discover that matter can exist only if it's observed by a human being. Striking conclusion. So the observation is creating new reality. The same maybe can be applied to the pronouncing of Yehi Adonenu, because not only we express our desire, not only we express our longing for Mashiach, not only we express our confidence, but we, by pronouncing those words, are creating new reality, are really helping in accelerating the process of revelation of Mashiach, making it imminent, making it immediate. And I think the best I can suggest for finishing my talk, if we all stand up and jointly pronounce Yehi 3 times, but let it be a special Yehi, with a special feeling, with a special internal longing, with a feeling of a burning necessity, with a feeling that we are completely dedicated to this idea and to the necessity, and we are ready to work day and night to expedite, to make it immediate, to meet the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, Shalita. And let's try to pronounce it 3 times exactly as I tried to describe, and maybe if I would be speaking Russian I would be more able to convince you, but I believe that everybody has this feeling, has this emotion, has this appreciation of necessity to do whatever we do with putting into it our entire soul and our entire ability and our entire emotion. Yehi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'elam Voed. Yehi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'elam Voed. And the last time even stronger. Yehi Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'elam Voed. Thank you for your attention.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Professor Branover for his very heartsick words. Tvorim hayotzim min halev. I'm calling the next speaker, Rav Daniel Kahn, Rabbi Kehillah, an emeritus chief rabbi, when he lived in the Netherlands, to address us. Rabbi Kahn.
A gute Woche. Neshama Toiva, Darkei Hasidus, Belimud Hasidus, Tikseyu Tachseinu. Abruchim Haboim, to everyone who came here for tonight, not only to those who came from far away, sometimes more courage is even needed for those who live close by. I would like to go into an area which is a little bit dangerous. People ask questions. How can you say Yechi? How can you say the Rebbe is alive? All these strange things. We all know about the famous Gemara, the Yankov Avinu lo Imeis, and Chazal ask, was the embalming for nothing? Was the burial for nothing? And apparently, nobody has any problems with that. Yankov Avinu lo Imeis, there was Take Levaya, there was Take Kvura, and still it doesn't bother anybody when Chazal tell us that he didn't die. Why doesn't it bother us? Why don't we have any problems with it? I'll tell you why. Because none of you were personally by the Levaya. It happened thousands of years ago. So, the Gemara sagt, so I'm asking. Yaakov Yuloi Meis, Eichet gut, weitergefahren. It doesn't really touch you personally, so it's acceptable. This is Sudas Melamed de Malke, David HaMelech, Chai V'Kayam. Doesn't bother anybody. Also, it was ages ago. You were not personally by the Levaya or anything, so Eichet gut. I was personally by the Levaya, Gimel Tammuz. And still, it doesn't bother me to say Yechi. Why not? Chazal say, it's more down in Halacha, that Dvorim Shebegedusha, you can only say when you have a minyan. Why is that? When you have even 3 people, even 1 person, the Shechin is there. But our Chachamim has told us that when 10 Yidden, when 10 Bar Mitzvah boys are there, the Shechin is there in a certain way which allows us to say Devarim Shebekdusha. We cannot see it, we do not feel it, we do not understand it. According to me, it's hard to understand. If you have a boy who's 1 day before his bar mitzvah, and he's a big Talmid Chacham, and you have perhaps 9 Badlanim, shouldn't he be able to be mashlim the minyan? But we know it doesn't go like that. But our Chachamim tell us, even if we don't understand it, even if we don't see it, we know this is the way it is, and we accept it. And therefore we would only say Dvarim Shebekdusha when we have a minyan. Why is it then that it bothers us when we know, and the Rebbe has told us, that the only thing what is missing is that we shall open our eyes? If we would have the sensitivity and be able to see, we would be able to see. All the years we were able to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe promised, and the Rebbe gave brachas. We saw that these things were mekuyim, and the Rebbe never ever let us down. Why is it that now so many people have kashas? If we really would have emunah, if we really would have bitochain, we wouldn't have any kashas. One can extrapolate. We can see those things which we saw with our gashmistige eyes, that the Rebbe never ever let us down. In the same way now, even if we don't understand it, we don't feel it. If we trust our Chachamim that the Shechin is there in a certain way when there are 10 people who are bar mitzvah, why don't we trust when we are told that right now the Rebbe is with us and helping us and supporting us? The Rebbe told us that he had done everything what he can do, and now it's left to us. Sagavald, however big the simcha is to greet all of you here tonight, It's an unbelievable, sad thing that there is a need for this conference. And not only that, this is called the first Moshiach conference. Shimu Shamayim. Halavai, we should never ever have a need to see a second one. Whose fault is it? A ganze Schmitte ist schon durchgegangen. Since Gimel Tammuz. It's unbelievable. And if the Rebbe said he has done everything he can do, and now it is in our hands, it's our acharayis. Well, that means also that we have the koiches. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu bo bitrunyim briyosov. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he demands something from us, he gives us the koiches. A father does not give a small little baby a heavy suitcase to carry. If the Rebbe says it's now in our hands, that means we have the koiches and we have the capabilities. So what is it that is missing? Many meisters have been put up. People have been with Mivtzoim, whether it's tefillin, whether it's Shabbos candles, whether it's Tasam Mishpacha, whether it's kashrus. Baruch Hashem Mentut. People are working on the Mivtzoim. So how come that 7 years is gone and we are still in Golus? Why? How come? Now I know whose fault it is. And I can tell you who it is. If you want to see that person who is guilty, you just need a mirror. That is the person who is guilty. If we want the sensitivity, if we want to be able to see Moshiach, we have to tune in to that station. We have to tune in to that level. We have to prepare ourselves. The Rebbe told us one has to learn about Inyonei Moshiach uGeula. If you don't learn it, you don't know it. You're not sensitive to it. You cannot feel it. You cannot adjust to it. Lahavdil, a person who doesn't understand music, he cannot appreciate the beauty of it. Some people study years to understand all the fine Sachen in music. There are opportunities to learn in your name, Moshiach uGeula. If one has to speak to other people about it, one has to know. There's no shortcut to it. If one does not learn, one does not know. If one does not know, you don't live in a Moshiachic world. You cannot influence other people, and you yourself can even expect to see it. And that is why it is every single one of us our duty. And now, we have a place where one can learn in your name, Moshiach uGeula. It's up to every one of us to utilize it. And one thing more, which already the previous speaker, he touched upon. The Rebbe has told us that if we want the bracha milmayla, says, B'cheinu avinu kulanu ke'echad. How do we get the bracha milmayla? If we all are ke'echad, like one. There is unity among us. The word echad, everybody knows, has the gematria of ahava. It's called Avas Yisrael. Now it's very easy to show Avas Yisrael to a stranger. If somebody comes in with the long hair and jeans and never put on tefillin, everybody's jumping there to show Avas Yisrael. The real hard place to show Avas Yisrael is to those people who you are surrounded by day and night. The closer a person is to you, the more difficult it is to show genuine Avas Yisrael to that person. We agree to disagree. There are people who are against perhaps what is being promoted here. That does not give us the right to speak bad about them. Avas Yisrael is the basic thing in Chassidus. And if we want genuinely to be Zoichet to see Moshiach, that is a very foremost thing what we have to improve on. We are now in the Shanas HaChamishim. That's the first year which really contains Moshiach. The letters in the middle of HaChamishim are the letters of Moshiach. And interesting enough, Moshiach and HaChamishim is Gematria Tov Shin Samach Aleph. We are having an Asifa here, a convention, and it's a very good thing to have a convention, and it's very good to hear all the speakers, but really it boils down to every single one of us. B'miras Hashem, they'll be made hachlotes, they'll be decided to meet, have contact once a month, and so on. But really, even if one is not on the panel, and if one is not part of the group, that does not take the acharais away. Every single one of us, whether one is a Lubavitcher, and one is pro what goes on here, or against what goes on here, like we heard before, it's one of the chiyuvim for every single person to long and desire and beg and demand for Moshiach. Chofetz Chaim says that a person has a right and a duty, mamish like a person who has been working, so in the evening he asks for his salary. Chofetz Chaim says in Chaimas Hadas, that is now in our generation, our not only duty, our responsibility. And as I say, it doesn't matter which nusach one davens, it doesn't matter which way you turn your tefillin on the arm, the acharais is there, and eventually every single one of us has to give din v'cheshbon for that. Halavai, that this should be the last Moshiach convention. Halavai, the hachlotes which will be taken here will be carried out, they'll bear fruit, and they'll bring Moshiach Tikenu B'Korav Mamish.
Thank you, Rabbi Khan, for your warm words and your bracha. I'd now like to move on and call Rabbi Zusha Zilberstein, who is one of the Rebbe's shluchim in Montreal, Canada, who also operates Moshiach Resource Center in Montreal and has traveled specially to be with us tonight to be mechazik us. Rabbi Zilberstein.
Good Yom Tov L'chaim. Schaß mir, dass wir gebeten kommen nachher. Chassid, der Schliach, kein gar nicht dann an dem Reschuss von dem Shaleach. Hab ich gemoven gefragt beim Rebben, zu soll ich wegfallen von meinem Ort von Schliches und kommen nachher mit Staaten sein, sich in dem Kongress, mit das Kislev verbringen, im Schabes. Der Heid als Mann von Anon Nashi Kesovis Yehovis, das Beschaß befragt den Mäbisch nach Scheide, gibt mir eine Kucke Chumisch, gibt mir eine Kucke in Tere. Im heutigen Mann kann befragen Scheiles und befragt Scheiles. Das ist noch ein Film als Mann für Tere Mikro, wenn ich erinnere, die Tschubisch und dort und dort. Aber gefragt beim Reben, zu sollen sich bestattet sein in dem Kinus, in dem Kongress. Ich gehe die Protein von der Scheile, aber der Rempfer von Reben ist interessant, der Date von dem Rempfer ist Chof Aleph Kislev. Und dort schreibt mir der Rebbe, schon im ganzen Brief, aber an der Kude von dem Brief schreibt der Rebbe, Mechat Gießen Nesi mit Jura Apule Shenase Beschwuit Shovu. Aber mir gieße, sagt der Rebbe, nicht der Arte, le Kosfe, shekam ozman, lei shittef polu, mit ne achiluk idees, und le rotze le isare, v'chulu, v'chulu. Sagt der Rebbe, kima yeilu, kol ataimim v'aizboris. Afilim hem tzeikim b'miluam, להויר החשך שבחוצו. Rabbi geht weiter. Dann sagt der Rebbe, Vayem la Seisam, Vleile Diburim Mishakle Vetario. Und was dann sagt der Rebbe, heinte das, die ganze Shakle Vetario, die alle Diburim, das sind am Mazdikim Heder Apeula, und Magdilim Tardemes Haprat, und Bemele Tardemes Hagos. Sagt der Rebbe in dem Brief, aber geht der klare Tshuva vor Rebbe, wegen sich bestattet sein, sich in dem Kinus. Und in der Kude sagt der Rebbe, aber das Mann ist nicht als Mann auf die Burim, nur das ist als Mann auf Beulis. Und das darf sein, sagt der Rebbe, das ist der Tachlis. Von der Stadtfuss, von Kommen und von zusammen, durchreden sich, also soll davon herauskommen auf Beil Mamisch. Was heißt Beil Mamisch? Der Rebbe Mann von nun sagt eine Kude. Der Rebbe sagt es klar, als die ganze Avedis Berurim hat sich schon geendigt, der Avedis Gottes hat sich geendigt, was der Heinte geblieben, die einzige Sache, was geblieben eigentlich die Schliches ist, sich zugreifen und zugreifen die Welt, darum sich auf der Kabel sein, nein, Moshiach, Zitkein und Befehl Mamisch. Und da sagt der Rebbe, das ist die Schliches, das ist die Avede, auf sich zugreifen, auf der Kabel sein, nein, Moshiach. Sagt der Rebbe, was meint das? Passt an ihm leben aufeinander helfen. Leben in einer Neffen, was wir öffnen hegen, und wir sollen an ihm gucken von einem anderen Standpunkt. Nicht gucken von einer gastmäßigen, fleischigen Guck, noch gucken wie der Rebbe setzt an Linie. Gucken durch den Rebbe Siches. Gucken durch Tere. Der Rebbe sagt, man darf lernen in Jonem Moshiach und Geula, und befreit, sagt der Rebbe, wie das hergebracht in der Lekut des Siches von der Sidereinu, sagt der Rebbe, wie das sind nicht ganz Gule auf dem Hingen von Brengen Moshiach, sondern das helft und bringt an mir soll einem Leben Geula dich. Wir sollen sich stellen, sich mit der Tefach hechen, und an dem Leben, dem heintigen Mann, in der Nähe von Geula. Was das Monster bei sich auf Leben mit der höchsten Tages von der Munde, was man von uns hat. In dem Mann, was von einer Seite, ich sage, kein Schachkaffel machen. In unserer Gastmistigkeiten. Und man guckt auch sich mit unseren fleischigen Egen, sagen an wir sehen Geula, fast das guckt jetzt nicht, das ist ein ganz Neues. Aber man darf aber wissen, wir können nicht gucken mit diejenigen, na, wie Schaß der Rebbe sagt, als die Welt ist great, und sie gehen als ein Mann Geulasrem, und Ort kommt Moshiach, und der Rebbe hat gesagt zu der Welt, Moshiach is already here, and all we have to do is to add a little in the realm of goodness and kindness, darf wissen, dass sie damit ist. Das ist nicht kein Bruch, das ist nicht keine Fantasie, Sholom, das ist nicht kein Bakosch. Der Rebbe sagt, das ist die Metzies. Ich sehe nicht die Metzies. Darf ich verstehen, dass sie dich sagen mir. Darf ich sich Hand tun, neue Brillen, darf ich gucken an, ich will euch sehen, dass der Rebbe sagt. Sie doch mit Zeuge Schabes. Sie doch hier durch die 3 Lavdavkes, wegen der 10 Lassipung. Ich will sich erzähl euch am meisten. Wie ich habe gesehen bei Aiden, wie bei ihm kommt durch, wie bei sie sehen, klar, dem Emes Lamitosse, wie der Rebbe sagt, er sagt. Ich gehe die alle Brote, aber meistens ist heuer, kein heuer, es haben Sprache bei uns in Montreal, durchgegangen verschiedene Schwierigkeiten, begatscht mich, so beruchen ist. Und sie kommen zu einem Matzev, als der Memschol hat er ist vertrieben, die Sprache von der Stadt. Ich habe Papier, ja, ganzes. Ein Teil von der Mischproche gekannt bleiben, ein Teil von der Mischproche hat nicht gekannt bleiben, muss ich mal an Zeit zerrissen. Man getrachten, was tut man da? Esche sind alle weg von, er gab es nicht mehr genug Wutze von, aber Esche hat gefunden, es hat Winkel, ergens dort, ergens hat binnen der Dach, es hat ein Jahr reinlassen. Mischproche treffen, die Igris sind gefragt beim Rennen, und wenn er nennt von Rennen, als der Ort von der Mischproche ist da in Montreal. Weiß man, das darf man tun. Wie tut man das? angenommen euer Sahin und euer Saher. Der Wein hat mir Pasche gekommen und genommen dem Taten, Mann ist es. Und hat ihm genommen mit Ketelach, aber ja, schmere Sabeke, 45 Toxe, kommen zu gehen der Polizei, hat genommen mit Ketelach, und hat ihn weggeführt in Hadgadio, nicht kapesach Hadgadio, und hat ihm noch ein Protest am Leben verstorben. Was tut mir jetzt? Die Mischproche weiß, hat der Rebbe geheißen, die Mischproche wird sein, da in Montreal. Weiß man, als der Ort ist da in Montreal. Man redet mit den Leuten, mit der zweiten Leute, sagt der Leute, als mit der hat wenn ich da kein Schumort, als soll keine zurückkommen, nachher zu stehen. Nicht nur das, sie geworden, als sie sich angesetzt haben, auf die Früh mit den Kindern, als sie nach mir herausfahren. Es war eingefallen, was sie machen, Papieren als Studenten. Es ist mir derich klar, ich glaube, ich soll gerne mal ein Kind von 6 Jahren, ein Kind von 8 Jahren, ein Kind von 9 Jahren, Papieren auf Studenten, Bescheid der Eltern leben gar nicht gezahlt ist. Aber das ist der einzige Regel. Ein eingestellter Brief in Nigris, wir weiter an Anfang, aber wir sollen gehen auf den Berg. Geht da durch, hat das schon, sie wird gar nicht. Derweil kommt dann ein Brief von der Schule, als Montag ist der Deadline, und dann bis Montag seien sie nicht da rausgefahren, wird wir sie kommen nehmen mit einem Taxi, da rauszuführen. Der Lawyer hält in einen Abstub, und es ist ein Donnerstag bei Nacht, und der Lawyer sagt, dass Freitag in die Früh geht fahren zum Border, und dort geht der Messader, sie soll kriegen dort mit Papier. Hagama hat schon geprüft, sagt mit 2 Wochen Fahrt, und in der Ferien hat gesagt, aber geht zu prüfen noch einmal. Donnerstag bei Nacht kriege ich einen Call, entschuldigt, eine Woche vor dem ist gewähnt ein Scheide, er ist auf einen Beiten am Lawyer. Immer zu einer Ziege, wenn es der Scheinander-Lawyer, was sie machen besser. Und der Lawyer, noch auf zu wollen gucken auf den Case, nimmt er $500. Und danach hat er gesagt, bepasst es, als kein Gott ist stand. Was tut man? Sprache weiß ich, man schreibt dann einen Brief zum Rabbi, legt einen Brief in die Igris, und dann da ein Brief, wo der Rabbi schreibt, als was Monzer von euch ist ein Munde. Und sagt der Rabbi, nicht glatte Munde, aber ein Munde im Peil Mamisch. Ein Munde im Peil Mamisch. Und was ist die Munde im Peil Mamisch, sagt der Rabbi weiter, und der Rabbi schreibt es zur Früh, und sagt der Rabbi die Früh, als ein Munde im Peil Mamisch, was Monzer von dir ist, also es nehmen ein paar Kopkes von deinem Geld und gib aufs Stock. Das ist die Munde im Peil Mamisch, was Monzer von dir. Und dann, was wird getan bis jetzt, und dann ist es bei. Hat noch eine klare Tschube von Rabbi, nicht bei dem Lawyer, und sie macht sich jetzt ein Munde im Peil Mamisch, und sich ausdrücken, als gleich mal das ist das. Dann ist nicht bei Nacht, kriege ich einen Funkel von ihm zum Sabbat in dem Schule, und gehört in dem ganzen dem Case, und sagt er sich ein, was tracht getan, sagt ich, wenn der Lawyer sagt, dann morgen die früh Foto zum Boden mit den Töpfen von der Hauptdorf und kriegen die Papers. Sagt der Mann, der Jid ist ein Weiß, der kennt sich heute beim Schule, sagt, das ist Glattstusse, das hat nicht genommen. Weil sie nicht doch als eine Sache, als in Canada, so wir kriegen Student Papers beim Boden. Mir geht das bekannt nicht. Aber sie kriegen als Student Visa in Canada, darf man fahren, oder kann New York, oder kann Boston. Mir geht das nicht beim Boden. Sagt, ey, das, der Neue hat das Baton, das geht nicht bekannt nicht, was er redet. Ein glatter Perron, damit sie gerade scheich. Was tut man? Kollach auf die Früh, sag ich, Herr, sag ich, das hat mir der Jid gesagt, und der Lachure weiß, was er sagt, was hat betan? Was willst du tun? Sagt er, was ist das nicht tun? Der Rebbe hat mir gesagt, er darf halt mehr Munde. Und der Rebbe hat bekannt, die Auskunft von Rebbe, soll nicht beiten. Ist mir gehen, Tom, was der Lawyer heißt, dann kann sich Himmel und Kehrt einstellen, das ist gar nicht schwer. Ich tue mit Rebbe. Auf morgens fahren sie zum Boden. Vorne die Kinder fragt, das ist die Schwieger, der Babo von den Kindern, fragt, wo fährst du? Sagt er, fahr zu dem und dem Boden. Was Punkt zu dem und dem Boden? Sagt er, weil dort ein Kennerin ist. Einer von den Immigration Officers, kennen dort und hofft, dass er mit der Payment. Sagt sie, ne, komm, lass mal vor in einen anderen Boden. Was ist? Dort vor in einen Boden, wo du kennst keinen nicht. Darf gedauert. Der war was dort und sagt er, weil ich weiß, als kriegen die Papers das noch nicht auf die Dere Chateva. Du meinst, du es kriegen die Papers, weil du kennst jenem Agent, habe ich schon alt verloren. Ich kann das nicht werden. Der Rebbe hat uns gegessen und sagt, mein Mund abschütten. Ich will fahren mit dem Mund abschütten, mit dem Rebbensbrache und fahren dort, wo du kennst keinen nicht. Der Herr sagt, it makes no sense what you're saying, but if you're the client, if this is what you want, we're going to do it this way. Fahrt in Abode, wo sie kennt dort keinen nicht. Und er versteht sich allein, als man dort bekommen Papieren, Der Lawyer versteht nicht, was er bei kommenden Papieren. Sie kämen nicht geheim geworden, als Sachen haben sie dort gegeben, auch gesessen 2-3 Jahre. Nicht nur, sondern bekommen die Papieren dort. Now the officer sagt to Hezekiah, this is already May. School year is over in June. What's the point of giving you for 2 months a student visa? You know what, let me give it to you for next year. Darf nicht gebeten. Hat sich gegeben die student visas bis the year June von dem Jahr. Was sie da gewähnt? Wasche, Emune, Pschute. In dem Rettungsentfer. Ohne Schum und gesagt hat, man einfach, ich gehe nicht mit der Chatene, weil in der Chatene hat es genommen. Manche sagen noch an der Kude, aber da gewinnt später. Da darf man noch weiter sein, an der Mann soll ich gerne zurückkommen. Weiter gewinnt ein Entfer von Reben, als die Mischproche, wenn sie zurück zusammenkommen. Wir gekrochen, wo man noch gekannt, da gibt es gegangen bis zu dem Minister of Immigration. Eine jüdische Frau gegangen. Und die jüdische Frau sagt, it is illegal, there is no such a thing that this individual should be able to get any kind of a visa. There is no such visa available for him. A ganze, the prophet. Sagt when the minister, listen, you have to understand that this man is going to come back here because the Rebbe said so. The Rebbe said he's going to come back. So, he will come back through you, or he will come back in a different way, but he will be here. And the Rebbe in this letter said it's going to have to be legal. So, muss doch kommen, da war die Gallläufe. Cholef, Freitag von Kislev Shluchim, kriege ich a phone call from the minister's office and tells me, we have never issued such a visa, but I want you to know that today the visa was issued. And I want you to know why we did it. Because we respect Lubavitch. So said the minister, the reason why she gave that visa is because she respects Lubavitch. And I know, sagt sie, this is the Rebbe's bracha. And Munne, Heche von Sechel, und Davke Heche von Sechel. Was haben sie gesehen die ganze Zeit? In der Chateva hat man gesehen, hat man gesehen, als die Mischproche wird nicht kennen leben in Montreal. Aber als sie der Rebbe hat gesagt in einem Brief, als sie werden sich zurück zusammenkommen, seien sie zusammen. Was heißt das? Als man darf gucken, nicht von einer Nähe, wie sie guckt, ist in der Chateva, aber der Rebbe sagt, man darf öffnen die Egen, setzt sich an dich, und der Metzies ist, wie der Rebbe sagt. Le Peil, was sie das uns nicht gehen. Der Rebbe hat uns gesagt, jeden einen. Also macht jeden einen von uns als ein Schliach in Injane Moshiach und Geula. Der Rebbe sagt, er gibt das immer zu euch. Und Mond von jedem einzigen. Wer soll noch sein, sagt der Rebbe, Noshim Betaf. Jeder einer hat den Chiyuv und die Möglichkeit. Auf dann die Bulle. Die eine Bulle, was meint sich von uns, das kann und darf jeder in der Tag. Na was denn? Ein bisschen Furcht besuchen. Und ein bisschen geht man nach oben mit der Psalm, ein bisschen Cynicism, ein bisschen Kasches, voll mit Kasches. Darf man aber wissen, wie sie steht in der Parasche, wie die noch betuchim Mann und bekeche, schon sie sagten. Also in der Rebbe sagt, dass sicher das ist, als jeder mit sie ist, und auf das Ende scheint ist, weil ich habe als Schuss, in habe ein Heilig in den Minion zu nicht. Also wie heint doch hier das Kislev und verrendigt mit der Meißen. Was gerade darauf Pilze, was ein Stückchen Scheich ist in der Meißen. Und ist gekommen in Montreal, gewähnt am Meißen, gesessen in Tfisse. Und ist schon da gesessen, schon 6 Jahre. Und es hat ihm gekommen sitzen, nach 12 Jahren, doch Hashem gekommen, ein Jahr zu sitzen. 7 von was gesessen, war er vorstellt, gekommen spät in Schule. Das ist eine von den 7. In Kanada, da hat noch ein Drittel Zeit, was wir so gesessen, kann man beten, soll er auslassen, das heißt Early Parole. Auslassen ein bisschen früher. Einmal hat man schon noch gesagt, noch 3 Jahre, und jetzt ist schon noch 6 Jahre, und jetzt geht er noch einmal beten, soll er mal auslassen, zurück hinfahren. Ich habe noch gebeten, ich soll sein dort bei dem Hearing, das heißt der Parole. Wie geht das? Sitzt 2 Schäften, und sitzt dort in der Tevea, und sitzt der Nitfa, und sitzt der Osiresters, und sitzt dort immer von der Beisa Asurim, wo sie sagen zu Jahrhus, und sie schauen, und er merkt mit sich, oder der Lawyer, oder der Rabbi, sein mit dem. Der Lawyer ist nicht gewähnt. Und Meile fragt der Schäfet fragt bei dem Osir, bei dem Prisoner, sag mir, tell me why I should let you out earlier. Why do you deserve to go out of jail earlier than your time is? Der Ried, wenn ist reinkommen in jail, ist gewähnt, was nach Perra oder. Bei ihm mit der Leben von einem zweiten Menschen nicht gewähnt, ich gehe hier nicht. Aber bei Moshiach, der Jahr hat es Ried fast gebeten. Gewohnt dort nach Himmel Shabbos, aber nicht viel. Und ist noch koscher. Und gewohnt, war mehr Mensch, was das Stück von Odom. Sagt dem Schäfer, dass nicht geht dort alle Brote, warum, sagt dem Schäfer, dass I want you to know, Your Honor, that I am not the prisoner no more. And the Schäfer sagt ihm, there is no guarantee that you are going to be released. Sagt no, let me explain myself. I used to be a prisoner. Why, Your Honor, do you think did I do everything that I did? And trust me, you don't even know a fraction of what I did. Yiddish chutzpah tefot, Hayashalayim v'zibun deres, Baruch Hashem, sagt why do you think I did all that I did? And by the way, sagt I want to thank the Canadian government for being caught here and not in Thailand, because there I would not be able to say this. Because for 3 kilos pure heroin, you don't see the rest of your daylight for your life. In Canada, they're a little nicer. So, why do you think I did all this? Because I was a prisoner to money. And to me, money was all. I didn't care that children and adults died in the street from the overdose of what I provided. Because all that I saw in front of me was just money. This prison, I am freed of. Today I realize, Doctor, I understand there is more to life than just making money. So I am a free man. I might be locked up in an external prison, but as a man, I'm free. Ach, sieh dich schon da? Der Rieder, der hört, was hier das Kislev. Schön. Hat sich auch gesagt, dort in sein Fahrzeug. Und dann fragt mir der Judge, what have you got to say on his behalf? Says, look, Your Honor, I know this man for 6 years, and I can tell you that the man has changed his life. Hat sich gebeten. Sagt, ich bin ein Terror. Der Mann heint dran ein, der Geheim hat ein anderer. Sagt er, look, let me ask you a question. If I am to believe him, sagt er, ich darf glauben, was sagt, hat noch $600 in Cash. Und ich sagte, Schäfer, ich darf glauben, was sagt. Hat noch $600. Als kommt dann, ich kann mal auslassen von da, sagt er, fährt der gleiche nicht so, weil der Tochter nicht bleibt. Wir nehmen gleich in Airport in Lud. Sagt er, wo geht er? Der Früh hat er mal gegeben, mir Massadig, wenn er geht. Der Sohn mit der Tochter, das hat nicht gesehen, weil man hat eingesetzt 3 Wochen vor dem Sohnsbar Mitzvah. Sagt er, der Sohn ist jetzt in Chabad, der Tochter ist echt in Chabad. Kann mich spochen nicht, wo geht er? Cool. Wo kann er gehen? Kann er doch noch einmal machen, dieselbe Stück. Wie kann er mal rauslassen? Sag ich ihm, gerecht. Aber wir haben einen Plan. Was ich habe gekallt, sage ich, ich habe gekallt meine Makallik von Chabad in Eretz Israel, Raufpisen zufällig, in Krayot. Sie haben dort nach Meset, sie haben nach einem, sagt er mir, wo? Sag ich, von Lubavitch. My colleague from Lubavitch in Israel, and they're going to give him, they guaranteed me 6 months shelter and food, a frame where he's going to be, and he's going to be in a place that he's not going to have to roam the streets. But okay. Nothing else to say? No, again, the say there is, as we geht da raus auf ein paar Minuten und die Achlotte ist auf dem Platz. Kommt zurück in 10 Minuten herum und beginnt gleich die Achlotte. Was geht das an die Achlotte? Zu der Ried geht Heint raus von Chabad und zurück in Etzisrol, oder geht sitzen noch 6 Jahre garantiert. Und nach dem Action noch 6 Jahre. Aber noch einmal bis 6 Jahre herum, noch eine ganze Schmitte, geht sitzen angelegt. Wir gehen raus von dem Zimmer und sie sehen beide ganz angezogen. Ist versteht sich angezogen. Und es hat mir recht genommen. Ich bin nervös, was geht so jetzt sein? Kommt zurück rein nach 10 Minuten. sitzt der ältere Schäfer und der jüngere Schäfer, und der ältere Schäfer sagt das hier. Mr. So-and-so, und ich will nicht sagen den Namen, I was very impressed with what you said. Ich werde sehen, es hat mir sehr die Nummer, was du hast gesagt. But I don't believe one word of it. Ich glaube nicht kein Wort, wie das gesagt. Und der Goy sitzt, als ein paar Sekunden, derweil der Chamer hat der Ried gehabt, der Herzattack. Das heißt, was meint das? Du gehst als einer Ayoshev. Und wartet ein paar Sekunden und geht sagt, but I am willing to let you go. Ich bin bereit, dich herauszulassen. But not because of what you said, but because of the Rabbi. Nicht zu dir, nur because of the Rabbi. Und nach dem geht, sagt sich dort, na, gut, kann man sich nicht vorher, kann ich das, kann ich jenes, Gandhi. So, hat noch nicht gewusst, war, sagt, so, am I free? Ich gehe, so, geh nicht, was tut sich da? Sagt der Chef, yes, you're going home, not by yourself. We're going to take you to the airport. I mean, sagt sich, mir haben noch zu viel. Das ist courtesy of the government, mit noch zu viel, bis in die Airport rein. Steht der Ruf, hat sich mit mir herum, ein glücklich. Nach dem Trachter, was tut sich da? Gleich nicht kein Wort, was hat. Und geht immer raus, und wir gehen zum Chef und sagen, ja, can I talk to you for a moment? So, das ist schön. So, does it mean that I'm going to be locked up for the next 6 years? Ich gehe da rein. Ich kann nicht werden, kein Yoshev jetzt. Ich bin nicht das interessiert. Sagt no, I want you to understand something. Did you notice that when you said that you made arrangements, I asked you who were the one to make the arrangements, and you first said something, and then you said Lubavitch. Sag ich ihm, ja, sag ich ihm, where do you know Lubavitch from? Wann kennst du Lubavitch? Sagte mir, when you said Lubavitch, I decided to let him go. Why? Sagte mir, you know, they used to be on TV. Er ist ein französischer Guy, sagte, they used to be the Farbranger. Verbrengen. Vielleicht sehen im Rebens Verbrengen, es wird mir sehen auf Television. Und man hat es gesehen, über ganz herum Montreal. Der Guy lebt unterhalb schon weg von Stadt, in Adelphi. Weit von Stadt, ist retired, der lebt auch weit von Stadt. Und er hat gesehen, vielleicht der Sender Verbrengen, sagte, what happened? One night, sagte, sitzt bei meinem TV. Und ich gehe also from one channel to the other, mit einmal sehr, ich hab's abgenommen. Ich hab's heilige Problem, sagte. And I was just mesmerized. And I was sitting and watching this image. I didn't understand the word, because it's spoken, what I know now is Yiddish. There was translation in English, which was difficult to account. But I was sitting in front of the TV for hours on end and just watching this man. And in fact, I used to call every time, when is going to be the next Farbranger? And I fraged me, what happened that it's not on anymore? Why has there been no more Farbrangers on the TV? Sagte mir, when I heard that Lubavitch is taking care of this man, I trust the Lubavitch Rabbi. And on this account, I am willing to let this man go. Sitzt der Koi. Kachsidis käme nicht gelernt. Hat kemat mit keinem Streiches nicht gehabt. Weiß aber eine Sache. Als darf rausgehen vom Jail zu dem Reben. Der Rieder der Scheiches mit dem Reben, der Rieder der Scheiches mit Lubavitch, sitzt der nicht in Jail. Das hat der Goyler-Handel verstanden. Und nicht hat er es verstanden, weil er versteht nicht, was der Rebbe sagt. Er weiß aber, I trust this man. Is Allahas kamo v'kamo. Lahavdul $1,000. B'shas mir Herren von Rebbe. Wo der Rebbe sagt, dass ich gehe als ein Mann gulaschen. Als wir gehen raus vom Gottes. Und mir darf noch zulegen, ein Erzbaktano. Ohne im Leben, Moshiach dich. In der Chabad gewiss, als wir gehen raus vom Gottes, und der Rebbe schleppt uns raus vom Gottes, noch wie der Rebbe hat einmal gesagt, der Friedrich Rebbe hat gesagt, was darf dann sollte schleppen bei den Herren, je Freilichkeit. Und der Rebbe gibt uns jetzt noch eine Gelegenheit, noch eine Skunditschke, und gibt uns noch eine Minute, wartet auf uns, gib uns die Gelegenheit, auf ein Rausgehen vom Gottes, freiliche Reit, mit der größten Simche, mit der größten Emune, mit der größten Betochen, als Ort, eine Sekunde gehen wir schon nach Ruiz von Golos. Und mit was? Und mit die Emune, wo die jeden hat mir gewissen. Als in der Rateba hat sie sich kein Ort, aber ihm hält sich in der Klamke vor Reben. Ist Batua, bekeiche schon eise Socken. Und man tut Punkt, wie der Rebbe heißt dann, ist sicher, als Ort, wenn wir sich Porsche begasch, wir sind mit den Rebben, und zusammen, wenn wir singen mit der größten Simche, Yechia Adonenu, Mereinu, Rabbeinu, Melech HaMoshiach, Leilom Voed.
It's now my great privilege and pleasure to call upon Rabbi Shmuel Kraus, Shliach of the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach in Belgium, and one of the main writers for the weekly magazine Beis Mashiach, Shmuel Kraus.
לפי איך שדובר פה, אני אדבר בעברית, בלשון קודש. אני לדבר לא יודע. לכתוב, יש שאומרים שכן. מה ההבדל? לכתוב, זה שכותב הוא גם מוחק. כתב משהו לא נכון, הוא מוחק, אף אחד לא רואה. פס רק משהו, לא משהו מחק. כשמדברים, אחרי שאמרו משהו, אי אפשר לקחת אחורה. שקדוש ברוך הוא יעזור, שלא יצאו דברים שלא צריכים להגיד. אני בדרך כלל כותב על דברים, יש כאלה שקוראים לזה חקירות, דברים שצריכים קצת לחפש, לא על דברים הגלויים. אני זוכר כשאני הייתי מגיע להתוועדויות, הייתי בדרך כלל עומד כמו החבר'ה, לא יושב, עומד מאחורה, רחוק, משקיף. יודע שהדברים המעניינים שידברו, אפילו דברים שפעם ראשונה שומעים אותם, ידפיסו אותם אחר כך, יפרסמו אחר כך, לא ילך לאיבוד. הדברים המעניינים זה הדברים שישמעו מאוחר בלילה, אחרי שחלק כבר ילכו ויקחו הרבה משקה. אז יגידו דברים, נכנס יין, יצא סוד, נכנס משקה, הלכת כמה וכמה, ואז ישמעו את הדברים המעניינים ביותר. אנחנו נמצאים כעת בהתחלה של פרשת וישב, יוטס קיסלב, הרבי כותב במכתב שזה היה ביום שלישי של פרשת וישב. בשיחה האחרונה לעשתו שזכינו לשמוע מהרבי בתש"ב פרשת וישב, שיחה מאוד מעניינת, ואני לא אחזור אפילו על חלק קטן ממנה, כי יש כאלה שעשו את זה יותר טוב ממני. השלוחים מצרפת, ששם הרבי מדבר עליהם. יש הוראה מהרבי לספר מופתים. הרבי מסביר גם שם למה, והכי טוב שכל אחד יראה בפנים, ויש ללמוד את זה. כשמספרים מופתים, תלוי למי מספרים ואיך מספרים. כיוון שנמצאים פה גם הרבה מחסידי חב"ד, לאחרים אני לא רגיל לכתוב וגם לא לדבר, אבל יכולים לשמוע. אצל חסידי חב"ד, אלה שאני מכיר, בדרך כלל, כשמספרים סיפור מויפס שהרבי עשה, כמו בסיפורים ששמענו פה, אז ההתפעלות היא מאיך שאנשים קיבלו את מה שהרבי אמר. איך שהם האמינו באמונת תמימה, איך שאפילו הגוי האמין. אבל לא מתפעלים מזה שהרבי עשה את המויפס. שזה עיקר המויפס, זה הסיפור, המויפס של הרבי. מדוע לא מתפעלים? כי דבר שיש הרבה והמון, ואחרי הרבה כבר אי אפשר להתפעל. מספרים סיפורים, ולאחרונה נתפס שתחייה סמי סיממש, אנשים שהיו במוות קליני וניצלו אחרי ברכה מהרבי. אז אחרי כל הסיפורים האלה, ועוד סיפור, ועוד סיפור, ועוד סיפור, ועוד סיפור, ועוד סיפור, אז האדם כבר לא יכול, מזה כבר אי אפשר להתפעל, זה דבר רגיל. מתפעלים איך שאנשים מקבלים את הדברים. אבל אפילו תפסיד לחב"ד שמכירים סיפורים, ממה הם כן מתפעלים? כל פעם לפי איך שאני רואה את זה, ממה חסידי חב"ד מתפעלים? איזה סיפורים הם הכי מספרים בחדיוס כזאת, בהתוועדות, בלילה, אחרי המשקה, איזה סיפורים? סיפורים לא מויפסים. סיפורים על הרבי, איך הרבי מסתכל על הדברים. ובעיקר איזה דברים. הרי הרבי, אפילו על שהרבי הסתיר דברים ואיך הכל ילביש בדרך הטבע, זה גם היה הרבה, כבר זה לא חדש. מדברים על אותם פעמים של הרבי כביכול לא היה ברירה והודע שזה מויפס. אמר כן, זה מויפס. או דברים שהרבי דיבר על עצמו, התגלה, ואני כמעט בטוח שבהתוועדות שתהיה בלילה, יספרו את כל היום מה שגלוי כל העדות של הרבי של היחי אדוננו בתשנ"ג לתשנ"ד, זה גלוי לכל, יש בווידאו וזה הודפס והכל. אבל את כל הסיפורים שהיה לפני, את ההסכמות שהרבי עודד והסכים בהתחלה, כשזה לא היה לפרסום. היום מפרסמים את כל הדברים שהם לא לפרסום, הם הכי מעניינים, מה שלפרסום כבר כולם יודעים. את הכל שלפני, זה בטח מישהי, כבר גיליתי את הסוד, שמי שישאר אז ישמע, יזכה לשמוע את כל הסיפורים. יש כאלה שנמצאים פה, למיטב ידיעתי, אנשים שלא מקור ראשון, הם היו קשורים, הם היו בסוד הדברים, בהם דברים אמורים והם יודעים לספר את זה, ולא שווה כעת שאני אחזור על זה, כי אפשר לשמוע מהם. אבל אני רוצה כעת לספר סיפור קצר, שאם אני מבקש מחסיד לחב"ד, אם מישהו יודע מה הסיפור הזה, או שמע חלק ממנו, שיגיד לי, כי אני מחפש. אני קראתי את זה באיזשהו יומן, שעד כמה שידוע לי לא נתפס, סיפור קצר, ומראה על היחס של הרבי לאיך שחסידים מסתכלים עליו. וזה, בגלל שיש מעט מהדברים האלה, אז חסיד לחב"ד מאוד מתעניינים לשמוע את הדברים האלה. בהקדמה לסיפור הזה, אני אגלוש לעניין אחר. כיוון שאני מתעסק קצת בהיסטוריה של חסידים וחב"ד, אז בכל קבוצה שהיא, בכל קבוצה יש סוגים. אפשרות אחת לסוגים זה החילוק, ההבדל בין זקנים לצעירים. מה הזקנים אומרים ומה הצעירים אומרים. אני חושב שזה בכל קבוצה. עכשיו, הזקנים זה לאו דווקא שערות לבנות, אם כי בדרך כלל זה גם. הזקנים זה סוג של הנהגה. לדוגמה, אפילו היצירה אומרים מלך זוקן וכסיל. זה לא, זקן, יש גם זוקן של כל החוכמו. וצעיר זה לא אומר אחד שאין לו ניסיון שהוא לא יודע. זה הרוח של הדבר. ודוגמה לדבר, כולם יודעים, יש ארגון צעירי חב"ד. הרבי הקים. הרבי נתן את השם צעירי חב"ד. הרב לייבו והנמרץ היה בן כמה, קרוב ל-90, הוא היה יושב ראש של צעירי חב"ד, בן 90. צעירים זה מראה על הרוח, לא על הפספורט, מה שכתוב. וגם זקן, יכול להיות בחור בן 17 שהוא מתנהג כמו זקן. הוא בא, הוא הולך, הוא גמר, להסתכל על השעון, הלך, הוא זקן כבר. הגיע השעה ללכת, הוא הלך. צעיר זה אחד שהוא לא הולך בגדרים. לדוגמה, אני אתן דוגמה להמחיש שזה לא הולך לפי מה שרשום, שני זקנים שהם כרגע עולה בזיכרוני. אחד, אני רואה פה פריז, זה סבא שלו, אברום פריז. היה יהודי מבוגר, מהחסידים של הרבי רש"ב, אבל הוא היה צעיר. הוא בהתחלה בטוב שניות שלא הכירו מהרבי, בבית מושיח שכל אחד קיבל יש איזה קטע שמסופר עליו. הוא היה צועק לחסידים, תדברו על דבר אחד, רבי, 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 לא נתן לספר. מה, הייתם ברוסיה, עשיתם מסירות נפש, נגמר, עכשיו הרי בדרישות חדשות, רבי, תדברו על זה. הוא היה צעיר. עוד צעיר שאם החבר'ה מלונדון מכירים אותו, אני למדתי אצלו בכפר חב"ד, זה רמנדל פוטרפס. רמנדל פוטרפס היה זקן, נראה כמו זקן, בגשמיות זקן, אבל היה צעיר. טוב שנ"ד, בשנה האחרונה שלו, היה צעיר, דיבר כמו צעיר. הלוואי שהצעירים של היום ידברו כמו שהוא דיבר בשנתו האחרונה, שהיה מעל 90. הסיפור שאני מספר ביומן קשור לרמנדל פוטרפס וקשור ליוטיס קיסלב. רמנדל פוטרפס יצא מרוסיה, זה היה בחודש קיסלב תופשין חוב ד'. הוא הגיע לרבי בליל יוטיס קיסלב, הגיע פעם ראשונה ל-770, וחלק מזה נתפס, איך שהוא אמר, אתה ברוך השחיונו, ואיך הרבי הסתכל עליו. וזה שרמנדל פוטרפס הגיע, אז לא היה שולחים כל כך מהר. ידעו קודם שהוא הגיע, והרבי שאל מתי הוא יגיע, והוא התעניין. ובאותה שנה, היומן מספר על מה שהרבי אמר בחוף קיסלב, יום אחרי שרמנדל הגיע. ורמנדל התוועד, כמו שפה מתוועדים, בליל חוף קיסלב, ככה היה ב-770. מסיבה מסוימת, אני כעת לא אומר מי רשם את היומן הזה, אבל מה שאני יודע, זה מקור מוסמך ביותר שדייק באותיות. שהוא כתב משהו, זה מדויק. סיפר שבחוף קיסלב הרבי שאל אותו, מה היה בהתוועדות של רמנדל פוטרפס? על מה הוא סיפר? נורמלי, אם אני לא יודע את התשובה, אז רמנדל פוטרפס סיפר על יוטיס קיסלב. יש מגילת יוטיס קיסלב, יש בספר המנהוגים לקוראים, מספרים את המויפל של... הוא סיפר על זה, הוא סיפר רבי תפיל, סיפר על זה וזה. מי שמכיר את רמנדל פוטרפס יודע שלא זה מה שהוא דיבר. הוא דיבר רבי, רבי, רבי. כשהוא היה בארץ ישראל הוא אמר תיסעו לרבי. כשהוא היה אצל הרבי הוא אמר תהיו קשורים לרבי, תעשו מה שהרבי רוצה. אז הרבי שאל מה הוא דיבר ומנדל פוטפס ופברינגן. אז אותו חסיד שהרבי שאל אותו אמר שרמנדל סיפר סיפור כזה. אחרי שרמנדל היה בסיביר, 8 שנים הוא היה, אז אני לא זוכר. בתש"י-י"א הוא הגיש בבקשה לצאת מרוסיה. עוד בתוך המאסר שלו. והחוקרים שאלו אותו, למה אתה רוצה לצאת? למה? אז כל אדם נורמלי היה אומר, יש לי משפחה, יש לי קרובים, משפחה שלו היו מחוץ לרוסיה, נכון? רמנדל ענה, אני רוצה לראות את הרבי. ככה סיפר אותו חסיד, שזה רמנדל סיפר בהתוודות של יוטיס קיסלב. שבתש"י-י"א שאלו אותו, אמר, אז התגובה, פה הוא רושם, שהתגובה של הרבי על הדבר הזה, אז זה יותר גזוק? פלא, ככה הוא אמר. כי אפשר להבין מזה שלא היו הרבה רמנדל פוטפס, שזה מה שהם רצו בתש"י-י"א, לראות את הרבי, רצו לראות את האישה, רצו לראות את הילדים. הוא רצה לראות את הרבי, והוא אמר את זה שם לקג"ב. הולך הסיפור הלאה. שרמנדל סיפר שהגויים אמרו לו דבר כזה, אין רבי. זו פעם ראשונה שרמנדל פוטפס שמע על ההסתלקות של הרבי רייץ, הרבי נשמע, פעם ראשונה שהוא שמע מזה, מהגויים, הוא היה במאסר, הוא לא ידע, הוא שמע מהם. במאמר המוסגר, במקום אחר הייתי מודפס, שכשהוא היה ביחידס אצל הרבי ביקש אותו שיספר כל מה שעבר עליו. כמה שהיה לו קשה, הוא מספר על עצמו, אבל הרבי אמר, הוא סיפר על הכל חוץ מדבר אחד. שהרבי ביקש לשמוע איך נודע לו על ההסתלקות של הרבי רייץ. הוא אמר לרבי שזה היה במילים מאוד מאוד קשות וגסות, והוא לא יכול לחזור על זה, אז הרבי אמר, טוב, זה לא. זה היה במאמר המוסגר, אני חוזר לסיפור של חוף קיסל תש"ד, כשהגיע רמנדל פוטפס. אמרו לו, נודע לו, הוא מספר שנודע לו בזאת שאין רבי. אמר רמנדל, אני לא מאמין. אם זה לא הרבי בגוף הזה, יש בגוף אחר. יש רבי, אני רוצה לראות את הרבי. אומר רמנדל, אז הגוי אמר לו, כן, יש רבי. פה אני מגיע לנקודה, מה שכאמור, הסיפור הזה אמור לעניין חסידי חב"ד בעיקר. אחרים יכולים לשמוע. אמר לו ככה אותו חוקר, חוקרים, כן, יש רבי, אבל תדע לך שרק הצעירים קיבלו אותו, הזקנים לא קיבלו אותו. עד כאן הסיפור שזה סיפר רמנדל פוטפס בהתוועדות. כשהרבי שמע את הדבר הזה מאותו חסיד שסיפר, הרבי חשב, ופה מגיע הנקודה שמדבר, שמה שמעניין אותנו ההתייחסות, איך הרבי כן מתייחס לדבר הזה. הנה הרבי שומע שאמרו לגוי ברוסיה מקג"ב, אמר לרמנדל פוטפס, אין רבי, ואחר כך אמר לו, מה פירוש רק צעירים קיבלו? הרבי אמר לו בלשון, אני מקווה שאני זוכר בדיוק, אפשר וולט דוסטר סנדי אלט. אולי יספרו את זה לזקנים. עכשיו אני חוזר לסיפור עוד פעם. זקנים זה לא דווקא עם זקן לבן. דווקא הזקנים שפה אני רואה עם זקן לבן, אני יודע, אלה שאני מכיר שהם צעירים. הרבי החסיד בזליברוב, הם צעירים. מי שהיה פה בשבת ראה מה זה צעירים. אפשר להיות בן 17 או פחות ולהיות זקן. ופה הרבי אומר שיספרו, הנה ההנהגה שלכם הזקנים. למה הזקנים לא קיבלו? מה הפריע להם? הזקנים היה, הבעיות שהיו לזקנים הם איך יקבלו בעולם? איך יקבלו בעולם? קצת שונה, איך יקבלו? עוד אף פעם בשבע דורות לא היה רבי שהולך עם קנץ'. זה הפריע להם. הם הסתכלו על רבי שהולך הצעירים ידעו רבי זה רבי. מה שהרבי עושה זה רבי. הצעירים, עוד פעם אני אומר, זה לא הגיל. רמנדל פוטפס היה צעיר, אברהם פריז היה צעיר. אני אולי זקן. לא אולי. מספר את הסיפור, הזקנים גם יכולים לספר סיפורים. על כל פנים, בנוגע למה אני מביא את הסיפור הזה. כמובן, עוד מי שיזכה, אחרי ששמעו את הדברים המעניינים שיספרו פה, את הדברים שיוצאים אחרי משקה יספרו יותר מאוחר. ראובן, מתי זה ייגמר? זה לא נגמר, ראובן. זה לא נגמר. ראובן מטוסוב, לא מטוסוב, הרב מטוסוב, כן? שיראו איך חסיד שותה לחיים, וזה... מי שרוצה את המעניין של החסידות, שישאר. מחר יום ראשון גם באנגליה לא עובדים. נכון? כדאי. לא שאני לא... עד פה היה מעניין, אבל מה שפה אמרו, זה ידפיסו, זה יכתבו, ירשמו. אני לא בטוח שכל מה שיגידו יותר מאוחר גם ירשמו. יש דברים שאי אפשר לרשום אותם. אבל על כל פנים, למה נוגע לנו? אנחנו כעת נמצאים פה בקונגרס מושיח. כשאומרים רבה זה אומרים מושיח. אפילו אני לא אמרתי עד עכשיו את המילה מושיח, אבל אמרתי רבה וזה אותו דבר. שתי מילים שהן אותו דבר בדיוק. והשאלה איך אנחנו מקבלים את העניין הזה של מושיח, זה דבר חדש. קודם אמרתי לרב דוד נחשון, הזכרתי אותו, שהוא יודע את כל הדברים, היחס של הרבה להתגלות של המושיח עוד מלפני שכולם יודעים. יש הרי דבר שם שנקרא משיחיסטי. מה זה משיחיסט? היום אין ברירה. אני לא משיחיסט. אני עומדתי לפני ברירה שאצל הרבה זה ככה. היה לי מאוד קשה. אני אמרתי היום למישהו, שאם היה יוצאת הרבה תשובה, שכל הזה זה שונה, עכשיו משהו חדש, אני הייתי שמח, יותר קל לי היה. ושהתחיל כל הסיפור של טוב ש"ג, טוב ש"ד, אני נסעתי, אמרתי בוא נראה את זה בעיניים, לא בווידאו, לא נשמע מאף אחד, נראה. באמת הרב עושה עם הראש, הוא באמת מסתכל, אפשר לשמוע משם, כל השטויות האלה, הלכתי לבדוק את הכל, בודקים, עושים. את כל הדברים האלה, אלה הדברים הגלויים, היום הם גלויים. מה זה משיחיס? משיחיס זה אלה, דוד, הוא אומר שזה לא היה במודה אז להאמין. שלא... אפילו אלה שלא צועקים יחי אדוננו, הם מאמינים שהרבי המושיח, כשמדברים הרבי המושיח, אז למה אתם לא אומרים את זה? אם אתה מאמין שהרבי המושיח, גם הם מתפעדים בלילה אולי אצלם שאומרים שהרבי המושיח, אצלם אומרים רק בלילה, רק אחרי המשקה, לא בהתחלה. אבל למה אתם לא אומרים את זה בהתחלה, אם אתם מאמינים? אומרים, השאלה, השומעים, האם אנחנו לא יכולים להעביר להם את זה שיקבלו. הם לא כלים בשביל לקבל את זה. אבל אם אני הייתי כלי לקבל את הדבר הזה, אז כולם כלי לקבל את הדבר הזה. זו העובדה, ולא, זה היה סיפור עד עכשיו מה שאמרתי, נכון? לחיים ופיונטה. יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבינו מלך המשיח לעילום.
Now I would like to call upon our very good friend, somebody who has Mesiras Nefesh, cancelled other engagements to come here this evening. Rabbi Sholom Ber Kalmanson, Shliach in Cincinnati, Ohio, who graced us with his presence last, Yutes Kislev, and we still remember to this day the encouragement, the chizuk, which he gave us. Rabbi Kalmanson.
Ever since I was a child, I was referred to as an Ibche Mistavrenik. If somebody said it's day, I probably had to say it's night. I'm not exactly sure whether I belong to the Tzeirim or the Zkenim, but I do want to start by disagreeing with Reb Doniel Kahn. Reb Doniel started the evening by blaming and saying that if we look into the mirror, we will come to the recognition why we're still sitting over here in Golos. In essence, this is a principal question of how does one approach a fellow Jew in time of a crisis, if you will. If a person sees someone in the street being Mechalel Shabbos, if a person notices an individual that does not put on tefillin, do I call him a Poshi Yisrael? Or do I say that perhaps this individual was raised in an environment that he was never exposed to this? Perhaps I should say that this is an individual who never learned about Torah mitzvahs, He never lived in an atmosphere of tefillin, or of Shabbos, of kashrus, of whatever else it may be. And as a result, he's not doing it. Should you expose him properly to what it means to put on tefillin? Should you expose him properly to what it means to keep Shabbos and all other mitzvahs? There is no doubt in anyone's mind that this individual will do so. And this was really what the Rebbe taught us right from the beginning. As Leiv Yisrael Ehu, that every Jewish individual is ready for Torah mitzvahs. Every Jewish individual is ready for Moshiach as well. There is no such thing that an individual is questioning the concept of Moshiach. There is no such thing as an individual who has a problem. And we can go straight to the Rambam. If you open up the Rambam is also one of those who basically defended Jews who did not do Torah mitzvahs. And this is an open, blatant act that a person is driving in a car on Shabbos, and we have to find a defense for him why he's doing it. But the Rambam says that if an individual does not believe in Mashiach B'chlal, or an individual who does believe in Mashiach, except he is not Mechake L'Biyosei, then Hareze Koifer. He is a denier in Moshe, in the Torah, and in the Nevi'im of old. This is something that nobody knows what he thinks in his heart. Nobody knows what he has in his mind. How can I accuse and condemn this individual? And the answer really is that there is no individual to be condemned. There is no individual who thinks that Moshiach is not coming. The trouble is that Moshiach was put away in a freezer, as the Gerer Rebbe said, and he was frozen. And for years we left him in the freezer. And the Gerer Rebbe suggested that the Rebbe took Moshiach out of the freezer and thawed him out and made him accessible to each and every Jew. I was bringing last night over here with some younger bochim, and I told them, if you think for a minute how far the world moves towards the concept of Moshiach, it's just unbelievable. It's phenomenal. And in every sense of the word. The Rebbe at one point, and it was mentioned earlier, suggested that there should be Melav Malkis lekabolas Pnei Mashiach. Oshet Melav Malkis, being that a Melav Malkis is suited to David Malki Mashiach, there should be Melav Malkis for Kabolas Pnei Mashiach. And this was made in every city. I was invited one time to be in Montreal. I lived in Montreal many years earlier, and I was familiar with an individual there. His name is Rabbi Eisenstadt, who happens to be the principal of the Bisyankiv. Not exactly a Chassidish Moiser. When I came there on Friday late afternoon, there was a message for me that Rabbi Eisenstadt called for me. I called him back, and he says to me, how dare you people have the chutzpah, this was a woman's Melav Malkis, how dare you people have the chutzpah to invite my wife to this Melav Malkis? You guys want to do it, gesundheit. Nobody can tell you what to do. But how dare you have the audacity, the chutzpah to invite my wife? My reaction obviously was, I didn't invite anybody. I'm a guest myself. But second of all, I said, Rabbi Eisenstadt, we knew each other 20 some odd years ago. Tell me the honest truth. If 20 some odd years ago would you have agreed that we can do whatever you want except the problems that we invited your wife? For sure you would have said that you're apikusim, this is new religions, we're talking them nicht reden. Today you agree as ich can reden wegen them. The only problem that you have is that they invited your wife. I can guarantee you that shortly that will not be a problem either. You have to remember that the Rebbe has been like a conductor on a train. The Rebbe was always in the first car of the train, and if you take a look at these cars that you schlep, the long trains that schlep things with it, you have literally 100 cars in the train. And sometimes you have the mitzvahs that the front car can arrive into the 10th station while the last car is actually arriving to the first station. The Rebbe schlepped the world into the concept of Moshiach from the first moment that he took upon himself and accepted the Nesias of Chabad. If you take a look in the first Sikha that the Rebbe said Yud Shvat, the Rebbe says, and I'm not quoting word for word, but verbatim, as Tomer Eimetz Eretze Chaim, as ich hab Mekabel gewend in Nesias, ki dei ihr soll kennen sitzen ruhig und ich hab die Arbeit, soll man sich nicht einreden, gefägerlich im Busen. This is a task, the Rebbe said, that belongs to each and every one of us. And at that time, the Rebbe pointed out that this is the Doir Hashvi, the Doir, which is the final Doir of Golus, and the first Doir of Geulah. And you can see this clearly, how the Rebbe was working for 50 years straight in preparation for the coming of Moshiach. I'm sure all of you have heard that at one point the Rebbe had addressed a letter to the president of Eretz Yisrael. And the Rebbe did not refer to him in the letter as Nasi HaMedina. The Rebbe didn't refer to him as such. He called him by his name, and he addressed him, and he wrote the letter to him. On the bottom, at the end, the Rebbe writes a P.S. Please do not feel bad that I'm not referring to you as Nasi, as would be customary. And the Rebbe says, because ever since I was a little child of 3 years old in Cheder, in my... And even before that, he says, in his mind, it was set already that the concept, the title of Nasi, is only set aside for one, and that's for Mashiach. And therefore, please don't be upset with me. And you can see this clearly from the Mivtzoyim of the Rebbe, the way the Rebbe was leading Klal Yisrael in the Yud Gimel Ikrim and the 13 Animamins. When you ask somebody what was the first Mivtzah of the Rebbe, you'll hear people reacting by saying Mivtzah Tefillin. It's not true. It's not correct. The first Mivtzah of the Rebbe started way before that, and it happened to have been Mivtzah Matzah. Matzah Shmur. I remember as a kid, cynics were saying, why did the Rebbe say at that time to give matzahs? Because since the Rebbe was sending out young shluchim in little communities, and they had to fundraise, and everyone knows the tactics of fundraising, you make a raffle, you do this, you do this. So these guys cynically were saying that the Rebbe suggested that you should go ahead and give matzah to a balabas, because in return he'll write you a check. I can guarantee you that if that was the Rebbe's kavanah, you would have been better off giving out tam-tams rather than matzah. Novos, matzah shmura says in Kabbalah and the Zohar is called meichlo de meimenusa, food of faith. The Rebbe at that time began to be machdir, to give the individual the capabilities of the first animamin, poshet emunah shleima in Abayri Olam. And if we want to move on the road, you'll notice that mitzvah after mitzvah, the Rebbe moved on to everything until he finally came to the 12th animamin. The 12th animamin, bevias HaMashiach. And the paradox is something very interesting. Any siddur you open up, every Jew says animamin right after davening. And the Lubavitcher, who happen to run around screaming about Moshiach, don't say animamin. They don't have it in the siddur. Why? You have to pardon and you have to work along with me as my apikusis over here, but could you imagine getting up in the morning and saying, animamin, that I have a head? Eis arbeit nicht heint. Es tut mir weh, die Kopf. But I believe that tomorrow it's going to work. Nobody is going to say a thing like this. You're not miming that you have a head. You know you have a head. It's not a question in your mind, do I have a head? And if a person has that question, as ochnas weiss to him. The Rebbe starting going back, and the reason I say the Rebbe starting going back is because the Rebbe explained to us that all the Nesiim, right from the beginning, from the Baal Shem Tov and the Mazritcher Magid and the Alter Rebbe, and going right down the lineage, it's one thing. From the moment of his Galus Chassidus in this world, the theme was to prepare the world to Moshiach's coming. Therefore, the Rebbe worked so hard that the concept of Moshiach is not a nice theory, it's not a phantom fantasy, it's not a nice wish, it's not a hope, but it's a reality. It's real. And this is why people ask, why do Lubavitchers have this crazy Mishigas that you have to identify the Rebbe's Mashiach? Who cares who's Mashiach? Solche Mashiach kommen. And if you remember, Chassidim haben einmal gesagt, that mit gefragt, is Mashiach going to be a Chossid or a Misnagid? And the answer was a Misnagid. Why a misnagid? Because if he's going to be a chosid, misnagdim will not want to go. But if he's going to come, was hat a chosid wer das ist, a bi Mashiach gekommen geht man. And if that is the case, if was kocht man sich so stark, who is Mashiach? Was kocht man sich in there? But again, if you go back to the Rambam, and I'm talking in a halacha sefer, I'm not talking about hashkofer, I'm talking in a halacha sefer. The Rambam in halacha goes along and suggests that there were people who identified Bar Koziva as being Mashiach. What for? Why are you bringing this in a halacha sefer that you identified someone as being Mashiach? Who cares? As long as you have the animamim, Bevias HaMashiach, who cares? Why do you have to identify this? And the answer is very simple. We learn things, and as long as a thing remains in our mind philosophically, as long as the thing does not become a reality, a tangible reality, you really do not believe it. Ad kedei kach, as the Rebbe spoke by Fabrengen, that someone can use a term. Wir sind schon gelebt 2000 Jahre on dem Golan, kann man leben noch 2000 Jahre on dem. Where is the emunah in Bias HaMashiach for an individual should be able to utter such words out of his mouth? And I'm not talking about a gassenyung. It has to be real. But if Moshiach is only something that is not a reality, if Moshiach is only something that's relegated to Sforim, if Moshiach is only something that, yes, it's a nice wishful hope, because Yidden sind weg in Golus, und man mutschert sich, and you have to give them some encouragement, rett me sie ein, als morgen kommt Moshiach. In such kind of a case, kann sich a Yid herausrennen, sich a viele Talmud Chochem, sich herausrennen, sich a solches Wörter. But the Rebbe always wanted, as the Rambam points, that it has to be a reality. And if it's a reality, then we have to live with this reality. And if we want to look around in our doyer, what is the reality? There is no other reality. With reality, you can't play around. Sfas emes, at least in truth, does not work. You can't have it both ways. It's either or. Or if it's emes, it's all the way there. And if we take the life of the Rebbe, and you'll go back and see what does it say in other Sforim, you see something very interesting. The Rebbe had an Elter Zayde who was called the Maral. The Maral wrote a sefer called Netzach Yisrael. In this sefer Netzach Yisrael, the Maral writes the following: that the Geula Hashleima has to be bedugma, at least in action of what took place in the first Geula. So he says that the Geula Shleima of Mitzrayim took 40 years to happen. It was not something that happened overnight. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim and he took the Jews out, seien sie noch nicht gewähnt freie Menschen. The proof in the pudding is that the Egyptians chased them to the Yam. When they crossed the Yam, they still weren't free. So you come to get Amalek. And the other things that happen. So when the Jews actually become real B'nai Chayrin, real free, the Emes Geula was when they went into Eretz Yisrael. 40 years later. So the Netzach Yisrael writes that the Geula Shleima is going to be the same thing. There will come an individual, he writes, that is going to function for 40 years straight. And in his functioning, he will basically bring about the simonim of what the Rambam writes, who is Mashiach. And at the end of 40 years, he will no longer be able to do anything. He will not be able to do anything. What's going to happen at this moment is Kabbalas Oil Malchusah. And he finishes, V'hadohu d'chsiv, hayoim im bekoilis ishmo. Today, Moshiach will be nisgala, if bekoilis ishmo, we accept and we hearken his leadership. Kabbalas Malchusah. What else do we see in Mitzrayim? It was mentioned earlier, if I'm not mistaken. Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the Eibishter at 80 years old. Moshe Rabbeinu was no youngster. At 80 years old, Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the Eibishter in the Midbar, and the Eibishter tells him to go to Mitzrayim and to take the Jewish people out. For a whole week, Moshe and the Eibishter are arguing forth and back. The Eibishter says do, Moshe says I'm not deserving of, I can't speak, I can't this. For a whole week, Rashi tells us there was the give and take and go forth and back. Finally, after a week is over, and Moshe Rabbeinu runs out of answers, and if I could use again today's jargon, the Eibishter has Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, up against the wall. Mushin gein, hostische gebregenish. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He says, Shlach no b'yat tishlach. What does mean Shlach no b'yat tishlach at this point? It's doch schon gedun gesagt. So it's explained, as Moshe Rabbeinu told the Eibishter, Shlach no, I see, you're giving me the capabilities to see what's going to happen. B'achis hayomim throughout the Jewish history, when Yidden will noch dafen gehen in Golos noch einmal and noch einmal and noch einmal. So he said, Shlach no, please send today b'yat through the individual tishlach who you'll end up sending at the end. So we can avoid everything and make a shortcut when he's dafen gehen in Golos noch einmal. And what is the Eibishter's response to that? Bizgerech. Goyel Rishon hu goyel acher. I'm doing that. I'm sending the same individual now who I'm going to be sending later. So what does the Torah tell us? That Moshe is still concerned? Sagt der Eibishter, sorg sich nicht. You're going to cross the border. When Aaron is going to meet you, the Zkanim are going to meet you, and they'll believe everything that I have to tell you. They're not going to look at you as some old guy as from the Zkanim, as an alter Yidchen, 80 years old, mit nicht gucken auf die Wege bubble him. A person comes and never saw him, they never heard of him, and they say to him, he comes, he says that the Eibishter gerett mit him from a burning bush, should von ihm nicht wollen bleiben. So what does the Torah tell us? No, Moshe Rabbeinu crosses the border, and he sees Aaron, and eventually this Zkanim, and vaya'aminu, mit ihm geglaubt, all too good. What happens in the next pasuk? What happens in the next pasuk? Vayovei Moshe v'Aaron el pari. Rashi says, v'askenim heichen. A minute ago you had Aaron and the Zkanim as well. What happened to all the Zkanim? Rashi says, nishmetu echod echod. They slipped away. Just a few minutes ago, vayaminu. They believed. Where did they run away? The answer is that nothing changed in history. Who are these Zkanim? These Zkanim were Gedolei Yisrael. These Zkanim were Rabbonim Chashuvim. These Zkanim were people who had Kehilas Kedoshis. These people were individuals who were Einei Hoida. So when Moshe Rabbeinu came and said to them, Higi Azman Giulaschem, Vayaminu, no question about it. But after they sobered up a little bit, and they had to go back now to their Kehilas, and to let know Klal Yisrael, Higi Azman Giulaschem, the Seichel said in, I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell my people, I met yesterday a fellow, his name is Moshe Rabbeinu, he's 80 years old, he tells us a story, he spoke to a burning bush, and Medaf always gave him Mitzrayim. So now, you're crazy, you're extreme, you're turning people off to Yiddishkeit, and on and on and on, and because of these cheshbainas, they slipped out, they figured that the job comes first. If you're going to allow yourself to go in this kind of a mokim sakana, you could be left tomorrow without a position. And that's exactly what happened. History is repeating itself. The Rebbe walked out with a call, Higiyaz man giulaschem, and philosophically speaking, emotionally speaking, it's tremendous. Wow, we're going out of Golas. But when you sit down and you sober up a little bit, maybe you're going to turn someone off, and maybe you're going to do this, and maybe you're going to do that. And you find terutzim that the Rebbe said it has to be b'oifnei miskabel, and if it's not b'oifnei miskabel, maybe you shouldn't say it. I said this before, and I'm going to repeat this. A meretzechain that the Rebbe used the terms b'oifnei miskabel on Moshiach more than any other mitzvah. You're making a big mistake. I will show you igros. I will show you other statements that the Rebbe has made to people in 1967, right after the 67 war. The Rebbe told people as the Abzayim b'oifnei miskabel. You can't just run over to someone in the street and grab him by the arm, not tell him what you're doing with him. It has to make sense. And if anything, today there's a lot more oifnei miskabel in Inyonim Mashiach Hagula than there was then in Mitzvah Tefillin. I remember clearly because the Rebbe Gehasen Aroizgein in Mitzvah Tefillin, I happened to have been very much involved. There was a tremendous big episode that had taken place in Minneapolis at the time, in which Baruch Hashem I was zeicher to be part of it. Given ältere Chassidim that were very concerned, ready to tell the Rebbe, and some even told the Rebbe, was it betrachten von unserem Gast, ab an dem time. You get to them and you're putting out with people. Today, this doesn't apply anymore. The world is so inundated with the concept. The world is so ready. Everybody today is into, and please pardon my French for the cynicism, into Kislev Rachaikim. In the 50s, people were laughing from Lubavitch that it's Bittul Torah. In the 50s, people were telling Lubavitch that you can't go out from New York and go into a little Hickville and deal with fremde people because maybe you'll get schlepped away from Yiddishkeit. Today, these very same people are on the bandwagon with Kislev Rachaikim. They're also doing it. Show me one group of people today, one group of people that are not speaking about Moshiach today in more of a reality than ever before. I know this from experience. There's a particular Misnagdish yeshiva that when the Rebbe started learning Rambam and asked everybody to learn Rambam, made a special stamp. In the stamp, it gestanden that this book, they put the stamp in the Rambam, this book is made special for reference only, not for learning. This Simchas Torah came a bochel from this yeshiva to our shul. Simchas Torah, we're open to the whole community. Comes to our shul. When I read, for a minute, if I wouldn't have known better, I would have said, Salabavich bochel. I asked him, who's to this gelernt? In my yeshiva. I'm not going to mention the yeshiva by name. At this gelernt is our yeshiva. So ich under what? Shir it is given. So the halacha. Learned this in halacha. And his proof is that all this simonim of Moshiach is happening right now. That's the proof. So if you turn around today in the street, and you're talking even with people who you know lechatchila that if you say talk, darf man sie sagen nach, von deswegen, the impact of this issue has become one that it's not a question anymore. It's not an issue anymore. The Rebbe said clearly that when you meet a person in the street, you should say to him, we want Moshiach now. And the Rebbe said, kann man noch trachten am Minutele, das ist doch wilde Sache. When you meet a person, if you meet a person, you have to say Sholom Aleichem, was machst du, was macht die Weib, was machen die Kinder. What means you're going to run over to this individual and say, we want Moshiach now? It's crazy. And the Rebbe said that if in all your other conduct, if in all your other activities, you're groomed like an individual, you look like an individual, you're a normal person. Except Mr. Hamashugin Alaisi Dover is nicht gefährlich, it'll work. And the Rebbe used the proof of an interesting incident. I had mentioned it by the Kindas HaShluchim. The Rebbe used the proof of an interesting story. Today there's a person on the arena of science, Dr. Velvel Green. Dr. Velvel Green comes from a Yiddishistische family, from Canada. His people, his family, Taki spoke Yiddish, but anti-religious. From the Arbeterin Kevin. And when Rabbi Moshe Feller, the Shliach in Minneapolis, came to Minneapolis, he wanted to meet with him. He was trying to get inroads to people in the community. He wanted to meet with him as well. But because of his anti-religious stand, he didn't want to meet this guy with the black hat and the beard. He didn't want to meet him. And the whole time, he kept on avoiding giving him an appointment. Here is a professor. Here's an individual that was working for NASA at the time, and he just didn't want to meet with him. But Rabbi Moshe was very persistent. You know, Lubavitchers, I'm lost nicht rein, durch ein Tier kriegt mich durch ein Fenster. Hat mich gelassen, but he kept on calling and nudging. And I guess that Dr. Velvel Green said to himself, okay, if the only way to get rid of him is to give him a few minutes, he'll do that. So it happened to have been in the middle of the winter, and he set him an appointment, say, for a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, or in London, I should say, 3:30. And he told him that he's giving him 20 minutes and 20 minutes only. So whatever you want, you better get into those 20 minutes. Rabbi Moshe Feller comes on the designated time, and he comes into his office, and he takes a look at the Zegen, and they didn't have mincha. So he turned to Dr. Green, and he apologizes. He pulled out the gadol out of his pocket, turned around to the Mizrach and done him down the mincha. Velvel Green is saying to himself, look at this Michiganer. For years he's trying to get into my office and I don't let him in. I finally give him 20 minutes. What does he do? 15 out of it, he's talking to the wall. But the Rebbe said that because in every other aspect of his life, he's a Given Atomim B'drochov, he meant what he was doing, this impacted Dr. Green enough to say that if a person can give away the 20 minutes that he was waiting for who knows how long, and 15 of it he gave away to talk to the wall, he started asking, what is this guy doing, Takir? And slowly but surely learned about Yiddishkeit to the point where he became a Frum Chosid. Porsche became a Frum Yidin and a Chosid, a Chassidus. So the Rebbe said in the Gay Mashiach that if you are normal in all your other ways, except you're a Meshuggah Lo Yisod Dover, that when you meet a person in the street, you say, we want Mashiach now, it will impact the individual enough that the individual will question and ask himself whether or not what this is all about. So he now will get a yidiyah. And as mentioned earlier, and the Rebbe said this time and time again, in order to appreciate, it's not that you have to look in a mirror why people are not doing Tumitut Yot, Tumitut Nish. You should have to understand that people, and I don't care which circles these people come from, people including Bnei Teure and Chassidische Yidden und auch viele in unsere eigenen Kreisen haben nicht gelernt genug in Yoni Mashiach Geyule to understand exactly what this means, to know that this is a reality and this is not stam a phantom fantasy. I mentioned by the Kinus HaShluchim that today this Sukkot, this Simchas Torah became 100 years since the Rashab said that he was miyased the yeshivas Toim Chetmimim, and he said that there are a lot of yeshivas outside. What do you need another yeshiva? The answer why he was miyased Toim Chetmimim is because he wanted to have Chayolei Beis David. He needed an armed forces. What was the Chayolei Beis David? Everybody knows when you go out to war, especially people that live in Eretz Yisrael, you have to boost the morale. You have to tell the guy he's going to do well. That's why you have a martial nitzochen when you go to a war. But you don't start telling a person, you know something, you're going as a kamikaze, you're going out to war, but you'll die on the battlefield. In the case of Chayolei Beis David, Kislev get Jesus Liishtoi because maybe he'll die in the battlefield. That's a tremendous boost of morale. Yet, this was what was done, and this is exactly what the Rashab said he wanted. He needed an armed forces to prepare the world for Bias HaMashiach. And the analogy that I used then, and I'm trying to draw this again, is that the Rashab basically was the draft department. He drafted the soldiers into the army. The previous Rebbe basically was giving them the preparation in terms of training. But the Rebbe took these people out into a battlefield and put them out on the front lines to know this is a real war. This is nicht angerät, this is nicht angehackt in China. It's a real war to go out into the street and to de-ice the world, if you will, to thaw the ice that the world has been again, the Meibishten, Teure, and Mitzvahs, and as of late in Moshiach. Have we been successful? Yes. 100%. There's no question about it. Did we finish it? Yes. What are we still doing over here? The Rebishter will mezake sein that not only the frontline soldiers that were there in the Chayolei Beis David should be zoichet to be on the front lines, but that ganz Klal Yisrael, Chassidische Yidden, Litwische Yidden, andere Yidden, was basically in Ganzen, should join these front lines and be part of this Milchama. And in Tovshin Memvov, the Rebbe writes something else about the Rashab, what he had said at that time. He said that there are going to be 2 periods of time from the Isyazdis of Toim Chetmimim. And both of them will be a 50-year period. The first one will be Asher Cheilfu Ikvis Hashem, and the second will be Asher Cheilfu Ikvis Mishichecha. And at that time, the Rebbe said that this was Porshit HaNevius. That in the first 50 years, communism and the Yevsektia basically tried to eradicate Judaism. Ikvis Hashem. And then the Rebbe says it will come the second 50 years, which the Rebbe points out, how would the Rashab have known that Yidden was zogen an Imam in Alatov? Yidden was gläuben beim Unashleime in everything. To Teure Mitzvahs and Limud HaTorah every day. should fight the concept of Moshiach, and it soll sein getochen, and we can sitzen noch a Tag in Golus. This is why we're still here. This is why we haven't gone out. This is a Mesiras Nefesh on behalf of the Rebbe, on behalf of Klal Yisrael, to be mizakeh each and every person to be part of this. I ask that we should not be fools. Open your eyes and remember that this army, this Chayoli Beis David, is not necessarily a draft anymore. In the United States of America, when I was growing up, draft was a regular thing. People that didn't want to go to the army, or they were called draft dodgers. Today, the United States Army, which still happens to be the superpower of the world, is a volunteer army. It's not a draft anymore. Because the Rebbe always said what happens in the world is a reflection of the Lubavitch. At that time, the Rashab had to draft in, to put him into the army. Today, it's a voluntary service, and all those that are running around in the street and screaming, Kiruv Rechoikim, whether they know it or not, are joining this army. And again, whether they're doing it knowledgeable or they're doing it subconsciously, is Nish Negeya. They are joining this army, and my appeal to each and every one here tonight is please join this army and be part of it, so that before we finish this Verbrengen tonight, we should be able to be Zoiche to see the Izgalas of Mashiach. Many people ask the question, if you're saying Mishreit, as Edem metendik in the Verbrengen, Moshiach is going to be here. They always ask the question, Eliyahu Novi darf doch kommen frier. Where is Eliyahu Novi mevasser hagiula? Again, my apikosis fits in over here a little bit. I know that in all my years that I attended a Seder, and I'm told that Eliyahu Novi comes to Seder, I didn't see him. I attended thousands of brissen, and said, "Dok Kisa Shel Eliyahu," I didn't see him. Now, was Yidden wissen that Eliyahu Novi comes in different forms. Amol kommt Razeh, amol kommt Razeh, amol Zetman, amol Zetman nicht. He's there. The Eliyahu Hanovi of this generation are the Rebbe Shluchim who are Mevaser Hagiulim. So if you're asking me to Eliyahu Novi schon given, yes, the Rebbe can Moshiach kommen hein banacht right now and take us out of Golus, and we will all see the Binyan Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi tonight. I frage noch einmal eine Scheile, weitere Scheile, die alle Scheile sind gar nicht wert. It doesn't even fall in to the category of takers. I feel like a take euch nicht. Every simmer that you need has already taken place. And as I mentioned over there at the Kinnos HaShluchim, I just want to bring this out again because it's true. The Rebbe kept on saying that when you had the collapse of communism, the Gulf War, all these things were simonim of Mashiach. All these things are simonim. What are the Arabs fighting for today? We cannot talk about Moshiach without talking about Shleimus Haaretz. We can't. It's hand in hand. So if you take a look in a war, what happens? In a war, the first thing you do is mevalvel dem Steiner. You make noise, mit der Schreck them, and everybody knows in 48, Eden did not win the war with ammunition. Mit ungemacht tapes, mit meistens, wie man warft sich mit bombs, with planes, with who knows what, und mit sie alle vertrieben. You have to make enough disguise to scare the Steiner. That first the Rebbe started with tanks, if you will, then the Rebbe went down to more practical things and what you should do. Now we're in the phase of actually taking over the reins of leadership, so to speak, of this government, which is called Mashiach. And therefore you see this now with the Goyim. The Goyim Be'emes want us in one place, in the ocean, Chas v'Sholom. Aber Mishrei Terutzim we want, before they were always screaming, they want back the territories before 67. Give him Yerushalayim, give him Hebron, give him Shechem, and give him Yericho, and he's happy. And it's a funny thing, as mentioned before, that it just happens to be that Dafka, these places, where the Torah tells us clearly that David bought Yerushalayim, and Avraham Avinu bought Hebron, and Yosef bought this, and this one bought that. Those are the things they're fighting. When Yericho, Arafat happened to have been smarter than the Israeli government, and knowing as Yericho Manula Shel Yerushalayim. Whoever governs Yericho governs Yerushalayim. Etwas gewusst. And if you remember in the Oslo Accords, hat geschrieben, Jericho first. Hat nicht gesagt, give me Yericho. Jericho first. What's this cheshbon? I think that this is the final thrust in Moshiach. Because if you take a look in Vayero, where the Eibishter tells him to take Yitzchok, Lahara Moriah, Rashi says, as Yerushalayim is called Moriah. Nicht nur the Hara Moriah, nor ganz Yerushalayim is called Moriah. So look what they're looking for. They're looking for Moriah, they're looking for Shechem, they're looking for Yericho, and they're looking for Hebron. Acronym, Rosh Tevis, Moshiach. Your final thrust over here is that by no sheer coincidence started Erev Rosh Hashanah. By no sheer coincidence is it the Haftarah of the first day of Sukkot. As Goyim will kommen zu geben halten Milchama an the Harabayas for the sovereignty of the Harabayas, but der Eibishter wird nicht losen. As Yidden sollen da vertrieben werden von dem, und der Eibishter wird das zurückgeben zu Klal Yisrael. This is all no coincidence. We just need that we should open up our eyes and our ears to believe this, that this is a reality, that this is so. And I ask, therefore, again, and I appeal, that if the Eliyahu Navi was here, the activities were here, and the Rebbe said Moshiach is here too. The Rebbe said Moshiach is here. It's not a question he has to come. He's here. So it's only a question of opening up our eyes and seeing him, and going out to the Geula with him together. I beg, and I appeal, and I beg, join this armed forces. Join this voluntary group of people. Become part of it. See to it that you do another act of goodness and kindness. Poshet and Torah mitzvahs. See to it to go out in the street and help another Jew do something like that. And in such way, there's no question in anyone's mind that each and every one of us will be zeichet tonight before we bench to the Geula Amitis Vashleima, and let us all be Mekabel Oil Malchusay, as he says in Netzach Yisrael together right now. Yechi Adonenu Meirenu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. Yechi Adonenu Meirenu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. Yechi Adonenu Meirenu V'Rabbeinu Melech HaMoshiach Li'olam Vod. More than that, I don't think I can ask you to do, but please, less than that, you dare not do. A good to vote.
The Rebbe speaks about the man in was man gefindt sich. There are various nekudas. What are you saying? This is nekudas. Ein nekuda is that öffnen de Augen und sehen, dass Moshiach ist da. A zweite nekuda is Toyu und Ticken. Und der Eulam, man bildet bedingt sich, was ist Pshat, Toyu, Ticken, was ist Pshat, öffnen de Augen und sehen, der Metzies. And I want to reflect a little bit of these concepts and try to understand what the Rebbe is actually saying. We can move in the Poshet, as we darf leben mit der Zeit. Was das meint, der Parshas HaShavua. Was das meint, als man lebt hake mit dem. Also if the Maisa Yedua, mit der Bala Gula von Jutes Kislev, dass wenn der Goy ist reingekommen und gefragt, Pshat in Ayeko, hat der alte Rebbe gefragt, ob glaubt, dass der Teure ist Nitzchis. Was meint, dass der Teure ist Nitzchis? Als das, was steht, nicht ein alter Meise, was ist geschehen einmal. Nur das redet zu uns heim. Man darf leben mit dem. Das meint man uns. Wir sind daheim bei Nacht. The first European Kines HaShluchim. L'chayra, we all know Moshiach Kines. We all know that England and Europe are Tati Desasra. Europe, to the English, is an alien concept.
But nevertheless, I think there's a Yisoid Godel that the kindness is dafke here in Europe, dafke lahavdil uns und sei, but nevertheless there is an idea that we can learn dafke from this. Again, the Zach, with the Baal Shem Tov sagt, is Bashkocha Protes. We all know that the whole of Europe drive on the right-hand side. In England, they drive Kapoya, the left-hand side. The English agree that we should bring together the whole of Europe to drive on the same side. And that is, the whole of Europe should start driving on the left-hand side. Why? Because the English believe that they've been a nation for 1,000 years, without a revolution, without radical change. In this country there are people who are living in the same house for 1,000 years. Many families are living in the same house for 1,000 years. So therefore they feel that they are right. This is by say, das ist eingeführt. And the whole of the rest of Europe darf noch tanzen, noch sehen. Leute hier, teure Schleime Sholom, als if we say stussen. By uns we know, Eneinu re'inu v'lo yizor, B'zneinu shemanu v'lo yache, that the Rebbe told us clearly our tafkid and our shlichus, and what is the tzav hashohaim? Als mij even de ogen zet men als Moshiach is da. De Rebbe had lichtige ogen. De Rebbe had emmerse ogen. De Rebbe had de emmerse koek. There is a sikha of the Rebbe, Chelik Chavov and Parshas Tetzaveh, where the Rebbe discusses a pasuk, Chsavta lo psuche choisem, Kodesh la Hashem. That on the tzitz schreibt men Kodesh la Hashem. Wer so schreibt men Kodesh la Hashem auf den tzitz? Der Gemara, in Shabbos Chof Gimel, in Sukkot Daf Hey. Und der Chachamim sagen, dass Kodesh La schreibt man auf ein Schure und der Hashem schreibt man auf den zweiten Schure. Hat Reb Shimon ben Yossi gesagt, that I myself saw the tzitz in Rome, and there it's all written on one line. The Rambam paskins that lechatchila one should write the tzitz, the little words on 2 lines, but with the Evet 1 line is also good. Chayra Pelle. So Shimon ben Rabbi had gesehen mit der eigenen Augen. He saw with his own eyes how the tzitz was written. So how comes that the Rambam paskins like the Chachamim? So the Rebbe brings down a Meiri, which says that the Chachamim had a Kabbalah that was on 2 lines, and the Kabbalah is stronger than seeing with your own eyes. When we have a Kabbalah from the Rebbe that Moshiach is here, even though our eyes see l'chayra different metzias, by us the Kabbalah that we hear from the Rebbe, was the Rebbe said with seine lichtige Augen, das ist metzias. L'chayra zet men anders, is the Shiloh of uns. und bringen noch am Meister. Der Rebbe chazet beständig, als in Siddur Baal Shem Tov steht, ha-Gedusha. Sagt in Benchen, Yodra Leo, ha-Kedusha. Siddur Baal Shem Tov, sagt der Rebbe, steht ha-Gedusha. Ungefüllte Hand. Nicht nur der heilige Hand, ha-Gedusha, ungefüllt, ungepackt. Recently, they opened up to benching in Siddur Baal Shem Tov. Und der ewigste Hälfte, dort steht nicht ha-Gedusha, wie der Rebbe haltet ein solchen Kammer schon nimmt. Nur steht ha-Gedusha, also ihm steht in alles so durch. So straight away they made a copy of the Siddur, and they took it into the Rebbe, and they showed the Rebbe, schwarz und weiß, ha-Kedusha, nicht ha-Kedusha. Und der Rebbe hat Tracht getan, und der Rebbe hat gesagt, so habe ich gehört von schwer. Das wird gehört von der freundlichen Rebbe. Also steht ha-Kedusha. Schwarz und weiß steht ha-Kedusha. Bei mir, was ich gehört von schwer, ist stark wie steht schwarz und weiß. Was ist Pshat? Hat der Rebbe so getan, was guckt in der Gottes von Pesach, in Siddur Baal Shem Tov, was dort ist euch der Menschen, und dort steht Tag ha-Kedusha mit ha-Gimel. Mit gesagt anderes, wie bald das beim Rebbe ist gewähnt klar, als Caesar so, ist Pshat, als unser Ring ist nicht kein richtiger Ring. Und man guckt anderes, und man guckt in der Gottes von Pesach, man guckt in der Ingen von Gula. Pesach ist die Ingen von Gula, setzt man dem ganzen Ingen anderes und richtig. The Sikha, that I mentioned earlier, about the tzitz. There is someone in Yerushalayim who gives a shir in Likutei Sichos. Give a große shir, and roi people who are starting in the shir are not Lubavitcher. Davke misnagdim oder andere Formen hier nicht Lubavitcher. Und es ist sehr große shir, es kommt ein großer Olam. Der Olam ist stark hanno. This person calls me up every few weeks and asks me what sikha should they learn in this year. So one of the sikhas I said last year they should learn was the sikha of the tzaveh. So they learned the sikha of the tzaveh about the meaning of Metzias, what's Pshat Metzias. The end of the shir, stood up one of the people who was a mishtatev, who Davkes comes from a stark Litvische mishpacha, and they certainly don't vote for any Chassidische party, for other Rabbi. And it's come mamish from tiefste Bnei Barak. And after learning the Sikh of the Tzaveh, and this person had shailas and kushiyas, b'chulu. This person stood up and said, Yechi adineinu mereinu b'rabbeinu melech ha-Moshiach lo'olam vod. Because when we learn the sichos of the Rebbe, guckt man auf dem anders. Die alle kashas vergehen weg, bederach me mele. Me öffnet die Augen. Me sieht der andere Metzies in der Welt. Heilige Parshas HaShavua redt sich doch wegen Jakob und Esau. Jakob und Esau steht doch in Sforim, Sifrei Kabbalah, so der Rob gebracht, a fulle Mol in Chassidus, as Jakob und Esau is Toyu v'Tiken. Esau is Toyu, So wie steht in Sofa und Heilige Seder über Ela Alufim, Asher Molchu Be'eretz Edom Lifneim Leuch Melech, bei den Jiden. Als das geht auf Teuer. Und Jakob ist ihm von Teferes, Kalheim Zoi, es weist ihm von Tikkel. Jakob und Esau, nicht Bescheid, das Jahr als Esau, wenn etwas ein grober Jung, weil ging du noch an der Orim, steht in Yalkut Shmoini, auf Esau Hoyo Bechlau. Esau ist euch gewinn a Godel. A Godel, wie teures mag der a Godel. Gelernt bei größer Rebben, bei Avrom Avinu, danach hat Meshamish gewinn noch a Rebben, Yitzchak Avinu. Die Gemorre ist Mafli, sein Kibbudav, Reiche der Esau, beatweit der Yitzchak, als der Kopf von Esau liegt. Nein. So geredet. Reiche der Esau, beatweit der Yitzchak, steht im Gemorre in Baba Basra, als der Kopf von Esau ist in dem Busen von Yitzchak, weil der Mekoi von Esau ist von Go hoch. Und Esau ist gewinn ein größer Mekusche zu Yitzchak. Gewinn ein größer Chassid von Yitzchak. Vorreihe. Der Rambam sagt, was ist gewinn der Chiddisch von Yitzchak. Yitzchak ticken Meisreus. Der Chiddisch von Yitzchak, der Mitzvah von Yitzchak, ist gewinn Meiser. Und Esau ist gewinn ein sehr größer Chassid, als er gewollt geben Meiser euch von Melech. Es gewinnt ein Spitzchosset. Nicht dort gegeben von das, was man darf geben. Euch von Teven und euch von Melech. Es gewinnt ein Chosset, ein verbrennter Chosset von Yitzchak. Aber es ist gekommen eine Zeit, wenn Yitzchak ist blind geworden. Und es hat angefangen, eine neue Tekufe. Tekufe von Jakob. Was Jakob hat mitgehalten mit der neuen Tekufe. Und Esau wird Gott bleiben in der alten Tekufe. Jakob ist zurückgekommen von Lavan. Was ihm von Lavan steht doch in Medrash und Malbin aber the same shall Yisrael. Lavan ist gar hoch am Adrege bis alter Rebbe hat einmal gechallischt. Wenn gesagt hat, ihr Datum ist Lavan. Er gesagt im Lavan Gati. Lavan, Malbin, aber the same shall Yisrael, dem Reben. Was macht weiß, aber the same shall Yisrael. Der Rebbe macht lichtig im Welt. Der Rebbe macht, es soll nicht sein, kein ihm von Chatoim. Malbin, aber the same shall Yisrael. Gati, Vloine Sati, Savo Choshuv. Ich bin nicht kein eigener Kaplitschmacher. Mein ganzer Metzies ist zu sein Kusche zum Rebben und tun, was der Rebbe heißt. Im Lavan Gati. Was ist der Reihe im Lavan Gati? Als mein ganzer Metzies ist zu sein Kusche mit Lavan, mit dem Rebben. Vehili, Shoi vachamoi. Steht in Medrash. Shoi, der Moshiach shel Yosef. Vachamoi, der Moshiach shel David. Ben David. Als wenn ich treffe sich mit Esau. Was Esau ist ein größer Chassid. Aber wie bald jetzt man sich ein anderer Weide, ist ein Yisrael Mumme. Weiß sich nicht, wie man darf. Ist der Ingen von Tekun, der Ingen von Jakob, ist zu schreien, we want Moshiach now, Vihili Chamoi, Vihili Shoi. Der erste Sache trefft sich mit Esau. Geht immer ein Schliches zu Esau. Nicht Pschat, sagt wir sind doch Brüder, sind viele Menschen, lassen wir reden wegen des Königs von Amol, lassen wir verbringen ein bisschen zusammen, sagen L'chaim. Der erste sagt, darfst du wissen, Esau, Vihili Shoi Vachamoi. Mein ganzer Metzies ist mit Kusche zum Retten und ich koche sich im Bias am Moshiach. Und nicht nur bei Klolles, nur bei Proteus, Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David. Zochu banane Shemai, Loi Zochu, Oni Bereiche, Velachamoi. Ich koche sich in die Protein von Bias am Moshiach. Sagt Esau, beseide koche sich in Bias am Moshiach. Komm zu mir. Komm in mein Mäuse, komm rein in Hasseie. Komm, Avöle Mäuse. Sagt dem Jakob, alles gut und fein. Ob ich darf tun bei Öffenschel ticken. Bei Öffenschel ticken ist Pschat. Also ich darf tun, wie der Nosia da heißt, das Pschat ticken. Ich darf tun, was der Rebbe heißt. Und was ist das Problem? Die Leute Rakos. Die Leute sind Schwachenke, sind stille. Es befällt mir sehr, dass schon ist. Und so lacht doch, geamke Schei eure Fuh. Der Info bis am Moshiach, wenn sich also 3 Menschen oder 2 Menschen oder 1 Mensch ackern sich ein. Wie der geduldige chassidische Wort. Als Ponim, legehenem, und böches Ponim leganeten. Und wenn sie das böches Ponim ist ein Racko, ist ein Schwache, ist ein Edele. Kann sich einkennen in Ganeden. Kedei sich einzukennen in das Mann von Herren Beheste. In das Mann, wenn ihr Esau ist Lochere, der größte Koyach, mit 400 Roshei Zover. Und wir sind noch am Sey Mispo. Schwache Jiden. Was darf man tun? Man darf sich nicht behalten. Der Eize ist, als Ponim, Gehennen, wenn es ist Gehennen, darf man sein, als Ponim darf man sein stark. Darf man schreien, Ad Mosai. Darf man schreien, we want Moshiach now. Man darf sich einaktionen. Darf sich nicht noch geben. In Toshim Mem Vov hat der Rebbe gerät wegen Pshat von der Chochem. Der Rebbe hat gesagt 3 Mal, der einzige Mal in ganz Historie von dem Rebbes Messias, was der Rebbe hat gerät wegen einer Hareine Chochem Echot. 3 Mal hat das Rebbe übergegangen, der Reine Chochem Echot. Ich will appellen, von was darf ich? Dann mal hat der Rebbe gegangen, der Reine Chochem Echot. Sie denn der, was hat mehr gewinnt, ist der größte Chochem. Ich kann mehr sein, ist nicht der größte Chochem. Wie bald ist an die Akkord, ich bin der Reine Chochem Echot.
Sorry, you were not supposed to do that.
Der Pshat ist, als ganz Summe, Tovshim Mem Hei, hat der Rebbe gerät wegen Tippschim. Wegen die Tippschim, wo sie sagen, als man darf sich nicht kochen wegen Bisa Moshiach. Und ganz Summe hat sich der Rebbe gekocht wegen dem. Der Rebbe gesagt, was Pshat a Kochen? Kochen ist Pshat ein, wie es kocht sich in Bisa Moshiach. Das ist der Kenntnis von Kochen. Meile soll der Ebensch soll helfen. Ich denke, doch Chassidim sind doch kluge. Als der Kenntnis von der Chosses ist das Ebensch, was ist klug. Ebensch soll helfen, wir sollen alle klug sein. Tun alles, was wir kennen, zu bringen, Moshiach zu kennen, um Korf Mensch.